Chapter 726. Yezi glared at Li Mo angrily, but she didn't want to be entangled with her in such a crowded place. It would be the two of them who would lose face. She snorted, turned around and walked to other places. Yiro finally looked up at Li Mo. She didn't say anything to her, and followed Yezi to the clothing area. Yezi took Yiro's hand and said with a smile, "Sister, you shouldn't always wear the training clothes. Although I think you look good in the training clothes, you should always wear some clothes that girls like, right? I think you will look like a fairy if you wear a beautiful dress. I think the dresses in this shop are very suitable for you. You can choose whatever you like. I'll pay the bill today. I've been saving up my lucky money and annual dividends." Yiro looked at the dazzling clothes on the clothes rack, shook her head, and said, "I already have clothes to wear." "Oh, how long have you been wearing those clothes? I think you should throw them away. Also, those dresses of yours were made by the old tailor at home. It's not that she's bad, but when you think about how your clothes were designed by the same designer as your ancestors' clothes, just thinking about it gives you goosebumps, right? You're not an old woman." Fang Yan quite agreed with Yezi's suggestions. Who didn't want their girlfriend to dress up beautifully? Who didn't like their girlfriend to dress up gorgeously? Always wearing white or black training clothes looked simple and elegant, but it was necessary to change the style, right? And the police uniform, the stewardess uniform, the nurse uniform, and the female prisoner uniform. Life was short, and every kind of life should be experienced. Otherwise, she would have come to this world in vain. Fang Yan thought it was time for Yiro to make some changes. So Fang Yan stood beside him and echoed, "I think Yezi is right. Your clothes are either black or white, and most of them are the same style of training clothes made by the old tailor in your family. How many clothes have you bought? You're still a young girl. How can you share the same designer with an old lady? It's rare for you to come out today. You should buy more clothes for yourself. Didn't Yezi say so? She paid for it." Yezi was furious. She stared at Fang Yan with her big round eyes and said, "Fang Yan, do you have any shame? How could you say something like that? You also know that my sister's clothes are either black or white. You also know that she doesn't have many bright clothes? Since you knew, why didn't you think of buying her clothes? Are you a good boyfriend? No wonder eldest uncle and the others don't agree to the marriage between you and my sister. If it were me, I wouldn't agree either. I'm worried that my sister will have to suffer if she marries into the Fang family. I do want to buy one, but your sister has to give me a chance first," Fang Yan said with a wronged expression. "A few days ago, I said that I wanted to bring her to Beijing for a walk, but she refused. If she doesn't come with me, how am I going to choose clothes for her? You can't buy these clothes in Swallow Dock." Yi sneered and said, "That's because my sister knows you're up to no good. What you said is too much. What kind of person do you think I, Fang Yan, am? I never thought of deliberately taking your sister to a hotel in Yanjing to get a room. Anyway, she's my wife. Why should I be anxious about this kind of thing? You said it. Then tonight my sister will go back with me and stay at my house. I've also stayed at your house. Your house is not big, and it's not convenient to stay there. I've already booked a hotel room. Fang Yan, didn't you say that you never thought about it?" "I didn't think about it," Fang Yan said. "That's what I naturally did. Moreover, I booked a double standard. Each of us has a big bed. Can sleeping in the same room make you pregnant? Shameless. You're prejudiced against me. Anyway, I won't let my sister be alone with you. How can you be so shameless? I only booked a room. Why do you have to come and squeeze with us? What if you peep at me when I take a shower and change clothes? Let me tell you, I'm still a virgin. Although I've been laughed at, it proves that I'm not a casual man. I'm not willing to share the same room with a woman I'm not familiar with. Who wants to share a room with you? Who wants to peep at you taking a shower and changing clothes? You want to peep at me taking a shower and changing clothes, right? Look, you've exposed yourself. You just want to sleep in the same room with us." Fang Yan looked at Yiro and said seriously, "Let your sister go home by herself at night. You can't leave a beauty with us. You know that I'm not a man who can stay calm even when I'm in love." Yiro smiled and watched Yi and Fang Yan quarrel. Although she didn't like to talk, she liked such a lively scene. Because she felt that Fang Yan regarded Yi as his family. She regarded her family as his family, and she liked this feeling. Sister. Yi stamped her feet and said, You can't sleep with him at night. But I can't sleep with you. Who wants to sleep with you? In your dreams. You wanted to rush up and beat up Fang Yan. She said, My sister will sleep with me tonight. You can sleep in the hotel. Yi Ro is my girlfriend. Why should she go back with you? She's also my sister. Yi sneered. If she doesn't go back with me, I'll call my uncle. I'm not a troublemaker, but I can't stand this kind of thing. Fang Yan said to Yi Ro angrily. She dared to threaten you. If I were you, I wouldn't go back tonight. I'd like to see what they can do to you. Yi Ro smiled, put her arm around Ye's shoulder and said, I'll go back with you. Fang Yan felt that his head was going to explode. All his hopes were shattered. The police uniforms, the flight attendant uniforms, the nurse uniforms, and the female prisoner uniforms were all gone. Yi glanced at Fang Yan proudly and said, Where were we? By the way, we need to choose clothes. Yi took Yi Ro's hand and walked to the clothes rack. She picked out a blue dress and said, Sister, I think you must look beautiful in this dress. Why don't you try it? Miss, you really have a good taste. This is our latest style this year. The salesgirl next to her flattered in time. Yi Ro didn't hesitate. She lifted the dress and walked into the changing room. Yi and Fang Yan were waiting at the door. Yi sneered and said, Don't think I don't know what you men are thinking. You really don't know, Fang Yan said seriously. Don't you just want to sleep with my sister? No, I don't. I just want to give your sister a chance to sleep with me. Fang Yan shook his head and said, I'm afraid that your sister will be suffocated. Fang Yan, we're all adults. We have to face this kind of problem. I knew you were shameless, but now I know you're even more shameless than I thought. I just don't understand why you don't like me. Why should I like you? What do you have that makes me like you? I'm kind-hearted and kind. You don't have any of these, do you? Yo, are you flirting with your boyfriend? The annoying voice sounded again. Liemo walked over with her boyfriend, Hu Jinyu. Liemo, he's not my boyfriend. Yi retorted angrily. It was okay to say that she was poor or ugly, but it was too insulting to say that Fang Yan was her boyfriend. Yi couldn't accept it at all. Calm down, calm down. I'm just saying, Liemo said with a smile. I know you have a good relationship with many boys at school. At that time, I also thought they were your boyfriends. But then I thought it was not right. How can someone have so many boyfriends? So this one must not be your boyfriend. Liemo. Yi raised her voice and shouted. This time, she was really angry. Are you done? What do you mean I'm done? I came to say hello to you when I met my classmates. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? Did I expose your secret? Did I let you expose the fact that you have a lot of lovers? I didn't say anything wrong. It's just like that. Do you believe that I won't tear your mouth apart? I don't believe it. Liemo said word by word. Yi Xinchen, those boys flatter you. I won't give you face. I don't believe it. I'm standing here today. What can you do to me? Yi didn't say a word. She slapped Liemo's face. Pa. Liemo's slap missed because her tender arm was held by Meng Jianyu, who had been keeping an eye on her. Meng Jianyu scolded Yi while feeling the smoothness in his hand. He said with a straight face, Why are you so uneducated? You can't beat others with words? Who are your parents? Is this how they discipline their children? You look beautiful, but what you do is so shameful. You're a typical green tea bitch. Fang Yan, Yi cried. At this time she really needed support. Fang Yan threw the big and small bags in his hand on the ground. He looked at Meng Jianyu and said, Let go of your hand. What are you? Meng Jianyu stared at Fang Yan with disdain and said, Where did this little wild dog come from? But it's true. A bitch with a dog is a genius. Fang Yan grinned and said, It's quite smooth. As he spoke, he punched Meng Jianyu's nose. Chapter 727. Crack. There was a crisp sound, and then a stream of blood rushed forward. Because Meng Jianyu was facing Yezi, when his nose spurted blood, Yezi and the salesgirl standing next to her suffered at the same time. Yezi's body was splashed with some bright red blood, and the salesgirl, who was about to step forward to stop the fight, was covered with red blood. Ah! The salesgirl was a young and beautiful girl. She had never experienced such a scene. She reached out to touch her face, and then her hands were full of blood. She was so scared that her face turned red and she screamed. Meng Jianyu glanced at the salesgirl and thought to himself, "He hit my nose. Why are you screaming? How can you steal the limelight like this?" After condemning the salesgirl for overstepping her authority, Meng Jianyu screamed at the top of his voice like a victim should. Ah! Meng Jianyu also screamed. He felt that his moaning was much more authentic and passionate than the salesgirl. His nose really hurt. His body fell back a few steps quickly, and then he stopped leaning against a shelf. Meng Jianyu reached out to touch his nose, but the pain there made him dare not touch it at all. He couldn't even touch it lightly. Ah, ah, ah. Women with big breasts reacted slowly. Liamo finally saw what was happening in front of her. After screaming, 3 times in a row with a high decibel voice, she finally stole the limelight. Liamo carried the bag in her hand and quickly ran to Meng Jianyu's side. She reached out to touch his nose and cried, "Honey, how are you? Are you okay? It hurts." Slap. Meng Jianyu slapped her face and scolded. "Are you AF asterisk king idiot? Didn't you see my nose? My nose collapsed. It collapsed. Motherf asterisk cur, it hurts like hell. I tell you, it's not over today." Liamo was slapped in the face, leaving a clear palm print on her face. After standing there for a while, she ignored Yezi's sympathetic eyes and walked towards the man again. She blushed and apologized. "Honey, I'm sorry, I was too worried about you. Are you okay? Let's go to the hospital." "What hospital? Call someone for me." Meng Jianyu pointed at Fang Yan, and then at Yezi. He covered the blood on his face and cursed. "I want them to die. I want them to die without a burial place. Bitches and dogs will last forever. This son of a B asterisk tch dared to hit me. He broke my nose. I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. Call old Six. Quickly call my good brother old Six. Ask him to bring his brothers here." The door of the changing room was opened from the inside, and Yi Ro, who had changed into a long blue dress, stood at the door. She saw where Meng Jianyu was pointing and heard her cursing. She couldn't help but raise her brows and say, "Don't scold people. Don't curse. I'm going to F asterisk king beat someone up." Meng Jianyu turned around and saw Yi Ro. He was instantly stunned. But at this time, he was so angry that he lost control of his emotions. "You're not a good person either. One look and I can tell you're a green tea bitch." Yi Ro didn't understand what green tea bitch meant, but she understood the sentence, "You're not a good person either. How dare you insult my woman? I don't even dare to curse, but you dare to curse my woman." Fang Yan strode forward, wanting to give this reckless guy a piece of advice. Unfortunately, it was too late. Yi Ro's body suddenly jumped up. Yes, in this world-famous luxury store. She was wearing a blue dress that she had just changed into, and her body jumped up high like a little fairy. She jumped so high that Fang Yan could hear the exclamations around him. "Look, that girl. Mom, sister jumped so high. Amazing, is this a movie?" Yi Ro's body almost hit the ceiling of the store. She flew over the heads of several customers, and then began to fall. She flew above Meng Jianyu's head. When Meng Jianyu looked up, he could clearly see Yi Ro's feet. His pupils dilated, and his mouth opened wider. Then he couldn't see anything. Yi Ro slapped Meng Jianyu's face with one foot, and kicked sideways with the other. Bang! Meng Jianyu's body flew up into the air, and then rolled away on the ground. Crack! Yi Ro landed lightly on the ground. She did look like a beautiful fairy. Liamo rushed over like a shrew, reaching out to tear Yi Ro's face and cursed. "You slut, I'll tear your face off." Pa without the slightest hesitation. Yi Ro sent out another kick. So Liamo's body also rolled away. When Fang Yan rushed to Yi Ro's side, Meng Jianyu and Liamo were both flying. "What do you want to say?" Yi Ro stared at Fang Yan and asked. Looking at the blue dress on Yi Ro, Fang Yan said happily, "Ha ha ha, I told you. You look good in a blue dress. And? You didn't hurt him, did you? He cursed you," Yi Ro said angrily. Meng Jianyu raised his head with difficulty and shouted at the security guards who rushed over. "Call the police. Call the police. I want them dead. I want them to live a life worse than death. Call the police." When they walked out of the police station, it was already a little dark. Ruan Qian sent away the police chief who personally saw him off, and looked at Fang Yan and Yezi. Yi Rou laughed and said, "I often see you fight, but this is the first time I see you in the police station. Is it funny?" Yi Rou looked at Ruan Qian and asked expressionlessly. Ruan Qian was shocked and quickly stopped laughing. He waved his hand and said, it's not funny at all." Because of the relationship between Fang Yan and Yi Rou, the relationship between them and Yi Rou had improved. But Yi Rou was notorious, and if Yi Rou got angry, they would still be a little afraid. Seeing Ruan Qian's fierce reaction, Yi Rou slightly raised the corner of her mouth and said, "It's quite funny." Ha ha ha. Ruan Qian laughed while observing Yi Rou's expression. As long as the situation was slightly wrong, he would immediately change his style. He felt that his life was really too hard. He didn't know how Fang Yan could bear such a violent woman. Fang Yan and Yezi also laughed out loud. They didn't expect Yi Rou to have such an adorable behavior. Ruan Qian also didn't want to live under Yi Rou's oppression. After laughing a few times, he looked at Yezi and said, "Boss asked me to pick you up. He asked you to go home for dinner tonight." No need. Fang Yan quickly waved his hand and said, "We're going to eat something outside." "I'm afraid not." Ruan Qian insisted. "Boss said that we must have dinner at home tonight. He still has some things to deal with in the ministry, and he will go home after finishing them." Fang Yan hooked his arm around Ruan Qian's neck and said in a low voice, "Brat, are you deliberately trying to ruin my plan?" "I have no choice." Ruan Qian glanced at Yezi and said in a low voice, "Boss personally gave the order. I'm now begging for food under him, and I have to listen to him." Then he raised his voice and put on an incorruptible look. "Make an exception? How can I make an exception for this kind of thing? As his secretary, I can only unconditionally execute the order given by our big boss. Besides, why do you need to make an exception for this kind of thing? Our big boss is inviting you home for dinner. This is the glory that many people want. How can you not appreciate it? Then you help me think of a way. I don't want to see that old fox, Yi Dowling, and I don't want my girlfriend to see him. What can I think of? You also saw that the boss's daughter is watching from the side. If I don't convey his meaning, he will talk to his father when I go back. Won't I be in trouble?" He raised his voice and said loudly, "Besides, it's rare for our boss to have time to go home for dinner. If the invited guest doesn't go, isn't it not giving our boss face? I advise you to go back with me. If our boss is angry, the consequences will be very serious." Yezi glanced at the scene in front of him and muttered, "These two idiots." Then he said loudly to Ruan Qian, "Ruan Qian, go back and tell my dad that I have an appointment with my classmates for dinner tonight, so I won't go back for dinner. My sister will accompany me." "What about Fang Yan?" Ruan Qian asked. "Fang Yan? We haven't seen Fang Yan before." Yezi said. Ruan Qian secretly gave a thumbs up to Fang Yan and said loudly, "Okay, miss, I will go back and report to the big boss." Yezi took the blame for herself, and Ruan Qian naturally had no opinion. The big boss loved Yezi's daughter the most, so he probably wouldn't be too angry. After Ruan Qian said goodbye to Fang Yan and Yi Rou, she drove away happily. They were very happy that Fang Yan and Yi Rou could be together. Of course, they were also happy that Fang Yan and Qin Yitian were together. However, if Fang Yan was together with Yi Rou and Qin Yitian, they would feel bad. They were both men with two legs. "Why?" Yezi looked at Fang Yan and said, "Are you satisfied now?" "What do you want to say?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "I don't understand." Still pretending. Yezi's face was full of contempt. "Don't you want to sleep with my sister? Why don't you dare to say this kind of thing?" Chapter 728. Inside the police station, Meng Jianyu's face was swollen. He sat there looking like a volcano that was about to erupt. Li Mo's cheeks were red and swollen. She stood behind him, not daring to say a word. Today's matter, in the end, was caused by her. If it wasn't because she wanted to show off in front of her classmate, Yi Xinchen, that she had a rich husband. How could so many things happen later? She knew that Meng Jianyu had a belly full of anger that couldn't be vented, so it was best not to provoke him now. Liemo really couldn't understand how things developed to this point. Wasn't it just a greeting between classmates? This wasn't the first time something like this happened. The police chief, Wei Xianqing, came back. When he saw Meng Jianyu sitting there, his face became gloomy, and he was about to walk right in front of them. Old Wei, brother Wei. Meng Jianyu saw Wei Xianqing and quickly jumped up to stop him. Brother Wei, it's settled just like that? They hit me, and they just let him go. It's settled just like that. Wei Xianqing raised his eyebrows and looked at Meng Jianyu with an even more embarrassed expression. He said, Meng Jianyu, how do you think this matter should be settled? They hit me, there should be some punishment, right? Isn't that right? Then how do you think the punishment should be? Lock them up for a few days? There should be an apology, right? Let them go just like that. Look at my face, didn't they hit me for nothing? Meng Jianyu relied on the fact that he and Wei Xianqing were old acquaintances, so his tone was a bit casual. Lock them up for a few days? Let them apologize to you? Wei Xianqing's eyebrows jumped, and he said with a sneer, Meng Jianyu, you don't want to King live. Don't drag me down with you. I know better than you what kind of person you are. How many cases have you left with me? How many times have I cleaned up your ass? But you can offend anyone, but you offended these big shots. Do you know that you King kicked an iron plate today? Not to mention that I can't protect you, even myself. As long as they don't let this matter go, one word and I will be kicked out of my current position. Do you know who you have offended? Do you know how much trouble you've caused? That's impossible, Li Emo said with a look of surprise. Yi Xinchen, she's very ordinary. I've never heard of her family having any connections, and it's easy for her to get along with her classmates. Are you retarded? Who said that it's related to me to dress up like a hostess like you? Besides, do you think people of your level have the right to know about the relationship between their families? Brother Wei. Who's your brother? Meng Jianyu, if you don't want to harm me, then don't call me brother. I can't take it. Chief Wei, what kind of background does his family have? Can we finish him off? What kind of background? Wei Xianqing sneered and said, You better not know. I'm just afraid that your small back won't be able to take it. They're still outside and haven't left. If I were you, I'd quickly run out and apologize to them, and try my best to smooth this matter over. When they take revenge, I'm afraid you won't even know how you died. Don't you just want to sleep with my sister? Why can't you say it out loud? Fang Yan's face changed and said, How can you think of me like that? I want to sleep with your sister. But that's to protect her. You saw it just now. That person is very powerful. Your sister beat him up like this. What if he calls for revenge at night? Yi sneered and said, Does my sister still need your protection? You don't know the situation. Fang Yan said with a serious face. Your sister's body hasn't fully recovered from last time's injury. She jumped so high this time and used her body's true qi. Her body is extremely tired. If I can't stay by her side, her situation will be very dangerous. Fang Yan thought for a moment and added, I also have to transfer true qi to her at any time to prevent her internal breathing from becoming chaotic and damaging her dantian and sea of qi. Do you know what kind of bad effects a damaged dantian and sea of qi will have on us martial artists? Yi shook her head and then nodded. Although she didn't practice martial arts, she was born in an ancient martial arts family and had some basic knowledge of some martial arts. She will die, Fang Yan said in a low voice. Do you think I should sleep with your sister? I know you're lying to me. Yi looked at Yi Ro with uncertainty and said, My sister looks good. Fang Yan shook his head and said, Your sister. She's too headstrong. Her body is so fragile, but she still pretends not to let you worry about her. Do you know how many times she secretly shed tears these days? Yi punched out and scolded angrily. Fang Yan, you idiot. My sister doesn't cry at all. Really? Fang Yan dodged Ye's attack neatly and said with a smile. How can a woman not cry? My sister doesn't, Yi said proudly. I've never seen my sister cry. That's because she doesn't want outsiders to see her inner weakness, Fang Yan retorted. He walked to Yi Ro and looked at her lovingly and said, Let's go eat first? Then I'll buy you some clothes. Just now when Yi-ro was trying on clothes, there was such a conflict. In the end, Yi-ro kicked and ended the farce that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. However, the shop called the police. Fang Yan, Yi-ro, and Yi-ro were taken to the police station for interrogation. Although Yi-ro called his father Yi Dowling on the way, and his father immediately sent his secretary Ruan Qian to deal with it. However, time was still delayed, and Yi-ro couldn't buy a suitable dress. Yi-ro nodded and said, "Okay." When the three were about to stop a car and leave, Meng Jianyu and Li Mo ran out of the police station. Meng Jianyu quickly ran to Fang Yan and shouted, "Mr. Fang! Mr. Fang!" Fang Yan looked coldly at the culprit who delayed their time and affected their mood and said, "What? You want revenge now? If you want revenge, bring people here tonight. Bring more people." Yi-ro looked at Fang Yan as if she was looking at an idiot. She thought that this guy would really do anything to sleep with his cousin. No, Mr. Fang, you misunderstood." Meng Jianyu waved his hand and said, "Mr. Fang, I didn't mean that. I didn't think about revenge. After Director Wei's education, I deeply realized my mistake. I'm here to apologize to you. I drank some wine today and did some stupid things. I'm regretting it now. Mr. Fang, please forgive me this time. I won't make such a mistake again in the future. Okay." He reached out to pull Li Mo to the front and said, "Li Mo and Miss Yi are classmates. This is really a case of water rushing against the Temple of the Dragon King, one family fighting another. Little Mo, you should also apologize to Miss Yi. This matter is all on us." Li Mo looked at Yi-ro strangely, as if it was the first day she met her. This girl who dressed in ordinary clothes, did things in an imposing manner, and got along well with her classmates in the class. Yi Xinchen, who was even secretly called a female loser, actually had such a terrifying identity? Even her husband, even a guy like Meng Jianyu couldn't suppress her? She had such a powerful identity and background. Why was she so low-key? Li Mo. Meng Jianyu was a little impatient and said in a low voice, "Quickly apologized to Miss Yi." Li Mo tried to squeeze out a stiff smile, looked at Yi-ro and said, "Xinchen, what happened today is my fault. I caused trouble and deliberately wanted to anger you. You are a magnanimous person, don't lower yourself to my level." Yi-ro looked at her coldly and said nothing. She knew that she was not truly repentant. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong was a cancer that grew in her bones. To such a person, to a person who was not even a friend, what was there to say? Words like forgive should only be said to people who care about you, right? Seeing Li Mo apologize, Meng Jianyu's expression softened a little. He looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Mr. Fang, this matter is over?" Fang Yan squinted at him and said, "Are you afraid of our revenge?" "No. Why would I? How could a person like Mr. Fang lower himself to the level of a nobody like me? Isn't that right?" Meng Jianyu said and laughed. Fang Yan did not laugh. He looked at him seriously and said, "Why wouldn't I lower myself to the level of a nobody like you? The big shots bully me because they think I'm weaker than them. You bullied me before because you also think we are weaker than you. Now that you realize that the situation is not right, that you have hurt yourself from kicking yourself, and then you boast that you are a nobody, I hope that we, who are big shots in your heart, will not lower ourselves to your level. Mr. Fang, that's not what I meant. I can compensate. When you bully others, you're arrogant and willful, but you don't give up on bullying me just because I'm a nobody. Instead, you look down on me even more. You're like a vicious dog. When you're young, you can only bully animals that are weaker than you. When you grow up to be a strong dog, you'll bully even more animals that are weaker than you. You won't become kind and restrained just because you're strong. Instead, you'll become even crazier and more savage. Mr. Fang, this is really a misunderstanding. So, why should I give you a chance to become a stronger dog?" Fang Yan looked at him with a smile and said, "Go back. When you go back, you will find that you have become nothing." Chapter 729. Xiaojiangnan. It was the most popular Hangzhou cuisine in Yanjing. Yi-ro liked to eat light food, so Fang Yan chose this place for dinner. At the dinner table, Yi-ro looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled face and said, "Are you really going to make Meng Jianyu lose everything?" A man should keep his word. Fang Yan leaned over to Yi Rou and studied the menu with her. He said, if you say you want to kill his whole family, you must kill his whole family. If you say you want to make him bankrupt, you must make him bankrupt. Don't order the braised pork. It's too greasy. The bamboo fish here is good, and the fish soup is very delicious. I think you will like it. What are you going to do? Yi Rou was very curious about this kind of thing. For a big shot like me, it's as easy as killing an ant if I want to take revenge on someone. I can do it by just making a phone call. Fang Yan bragged shamelessly. Are you going to call Lu Chaoga? Yi Rou asked aloud. Or Qini Tian. Both of them have the ability to do that. Because Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga had a close relationship with Qini Tian, Yi Rou was particularly displeased about this. She thought Fang Yan was a scumbag who played around with girls. Fang Yan said without raising his head. Why do I have to call them? I can call Lu Shulan Valley. Fang Yan did call Lan Shulan Valley. He believed that Lan Shulan Valley would understand what he meant and solve the problem neatly. He also hesitated to let Lu Shu handle this matter, but Lu Shu's means were dirtier and more vicious. It would hurt the harmony of the world. In the end, he still gave Meng Jianyu a chance to live. Lan Shulan Valley and Lu Shu were his partners, and also two of his capable men. Their characters were both extreme. One seemed to be generous, but in fact he was good at moderation. He could easily wander between the Lan family and himself, and he was a rare handsome man. Lu Shu's temperament had changed greatly. He looked gloomy but was cruel in his bones. If he hardened his heart to deal with someone, that person would probably be in a state where they could neither live nor die. But the people you really trust are Lu Chaoga and Qini Tian. Men will naturally believe in women who treat them well. Then shouldn't I trust your sister even more? Fang Yan ordered 2 more snacks and told the waiter to place the order. He looked at Yezi and said, why don't you ask your sister to kill Meng Jianyu and his little lover? Do you have a bad relationship with people in school? Why are even your classmates targeting you? When I was teaching in school, both teachers and students liked me very much. I was the school idol of Rosefinch Secondary. Keep bragging. Yi sneered and said, many people didn't like you when you went there just now, right? Also, don't think I didn't notice that you were deliberately changing the topic. How is this possible? Fang Yan immediately retorted, when I just went there, they just didn't know me, so they didn't like me. When they know what kind of person I am, I want to hit you. Yi interrupted Fang Yan's bragging and said, I know everything about you. My father has your information on his desk. Fang Yan looked at Yi Rou and said with a smile, you see, your family is still investigating me. They want to see if I'm qualified as a son-in-law. Then he looked at Yi and asked, did they give me a score? How many did they give? It is said that children from rich families will give scores to all their suitors. The one with the highest score will have a chance to win. I don't know whether they gave you a score or not, but it is true that they don't want you to be with my sister. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, we will definitely be together. Are you so sure? Yi Rou also turned to look at Fang Yan, and stared at his eyes with her big shining eyes without blinking. She meant to ask, how can you be so sure? Because the mountains are no longer as sharp as the sky and earth. That's why I dare to say goodbye to you. They didn't drink in the evening. After dinner, Fang Yan took the 2 girls shopping for clothes. Because of the unpleasant things that happened in the afternoon, the 3 of them were too embarrassed to go to that brand store again. Instead, they went to another shopping mall, to another world-famous brand store. Yi Rou didn't have many styles of clothes, and most of them were plain. Encouraged by Fang Yan and Yi Rou chose several brightly colored clothes. It had to be said that Yi Rou's temperament was out of this world. No matter what she wore, she had a different kind of beauty. Fang Yan was happy to see some changes made by his girlfriend. Fang Yan saw a sexy black pajamas in the underwear area. Seeing that Yi was trying on shoes, he quietly pulled Yi Rou over and pointed at the pajamas, saying, I think this one suits you very well. Yi Rou held the almost weightless black silk pajamas in her hand and asked, do you really think this one suits me? I think it's quite good. Fang Yan said seriously, and you didn't bring your pajamas this time. You need to buy a pajamas. Otherwise, what will you wear at night? Yi Rou nodded and said, Since you think it suits me, then buy it. Okay, I'll pay for it. Fang Yan nodded excitedly and said, It looks more suitable for you, doesn't it? Yi Ro whispered behind him. How come? Fang Yan was scared and quickly denied, saying, This one is too small for me to wear. When they came out of the shopping mall, the whole city was brightly lit and had entered the carnival season at night. Yi Ro held Yi Ro's hand and refused to let go, saying that she would take her to meet her friends. Fang Yan held Yi Ro's hand again and refused to let go, saying that he would go wherever Yi Ro went. So the three of them took a car together to a club called Elegant Gentlemen. Yi Ro was obviously a regular here. When they arrived at the door, someone greeted them. The receptionist in a red Han costume seemed to be familiar with Yi Ro. She said with a smile, Miss Yi, Child Chen and others are waiting for you at the Butterfly Loves Flower House. Yi Ro nodded and explained to Yi Ro beside her. Chen Feng is a guy from our academy. His father works in the Ministry of Finance. Yi Ro nodded, as if she remembered Chen Feng's identity and didn't care about these things at all. This elegant gentleman's club was built in the classical Wuxia style. It was mainly made of wood and decorated with halls, terraces, pavilions, rockeries, and stones. The waiters inside all wore long robes with wide sleeves, looking like a relic of the Wei and Jin dynasties. The fragrance of tea permeated the air, and the music was pleasant. It looked like a very elegant place indeed. Nowadays, people in the city were interested in novelty. Some places that were nostalgic or full of primitive and wild flavor were popular and sought after. For example, the beast hunting garden and here. The waitress did not take Fang Yan and others to the box first. Instead, she took them to a very secluded place to change clothes. Fang Yan looked at Yi Ro with a puzzled face. Yi Ro said, Just listen to her arrangement. Fang Yan was taken to a separate locker room. The beautiful waitress said with a smile, Sir, do you need to take a bath first? No need. Fang Yan stared at her vigilantly and said, What do you mean? I tell you, don't have any bad ideas about me. I came with my girlfriend. The one in black just now is my girlfriend. She is good at fighting. Sir, you misunderstood. This is a formal place. The waitress explained with a smile. The reason I asked you to take a bath first is that you can better feel the smell of incense later. Incense? Sir, aren't you here to eat? Eat? Fang Yan thought about it and said, Okay, I'll listen to your arrangement. I'll take a bath first. Fang Yan went into the bathroom to take a bath. When he came out, the waitress had prepared a white Han costume for him. Fang Yan felt a little strange in this dress, but he was not unfamiliar with this style. Because Swallow Dock was originally a special place with a strong traditional style. Fang Yan put on his clothes, and the waitress helped him tie his belt. She said, Sir, please come with me. Led by the waitress, they walked toward the small buildings in the backyard. At the door of a small building with a butterfly falling in love with flowers hanging on the door, the waitress knocked on the door, and there was laughter coming from inside. It must be Yi Ro. Yi Ro said she would bring her sister over. Her sister is also a beautiful woman. Brothers, please give in. Creak. The wooden door was pushed open from the inside, and a man in a black Han costume stood at the door with a smile on his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but when he saw Fang Yan behind the waitress, the smile on his face instantly froze. He looked at Fang Yan and asked, Who are you looking for? Fang Yan looked at him with a smile and said, Are you a friend of Yi Ro? Yes. Who are you? The man stared at Fang Yan more vigilantly. I am Yi Ro's brother-in-law. Fang Yan said with a smile. Her sister is my wife. They went to change clothes and haven't come back yet, right? Yi Ro asked me to come over first and get to know you. The man hesitated for a moment, moved aside and said, Since you are Yi Ro's brother-in-law, please come in. Thank you. Fang Yan said with a smile. He walked barefoot into the wooden house, where more than a dozen people were sitting on the ground. There were men and women among them, and they all looked very young. Tea was brewed on the tea table, and 2 sticks of incense were lit in a copper censer on the table. This kind of fragrance was elegant and fragrant, but not strong enough to make people dizzy. It smelled good spices. Outside, some invisible rich people liked to eat fragrance, and good spices were hard to find. There was even a saying that 1 ounce of agarwood was worth 100 ounces of gold. However, the arrival of Fang Yan suddenly broke the lively atmosphere of the scene. Everyone looked at the intruder with a strange expression. Chapter 730. You could never wake up a person who pretended to be asleep, and you could never defeat a thick-skinned person. After Fang Yan sat down, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. No one was familiar with him, and they didn't know what to say when they met him for the first time. They could only look at each other in awkward silence. Fang Yan looked indifferent. He picked up the teacup in front of him, and carefully tasted the high-quality Dahong Pao tea. Anyway, he was just an accompanying guest, an inconspicuous but important green leaf beside Yi Wen and Yi Wenro. This was his position in his heart. Chen Feng was Ye's pursuer and the organizer of this party. Although he didn't like Fang Yan, he also knew that since this person was brought here by Yi, he was naturally valued by Yi. If he had a close relationship with Yi, thinking that he might have a close relationship with Yi, Chen Feng didn't have a good impression of Fang Yan. Brother-in-law? Brother-in-law? So what? How did that sentence come about? Wasn't a sister-in-law the intimate little cotton-padded jacket of a brother-in-law? However, he still had to put on a good show. Chen Feng looked at Fang Yan and asked with a smile, "Sir, what's your name?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Oh, Mr. Fang, are you really Ye's brother-in-law?" "Yes." Fang Yan nodded with absolute certainty. Ye's sister was Yi Wenro. If he wasn't her brother-in-law, who else could be her brother-in-law? "I've long heard from Yi that she has a beautiful sister who is as beautiful as a fairy, but we haven't had the chance to meet her. This time she said she would bring her sister to Yanjing for a trip, so we wanted to do our duty as hosts." Chen Feng had a square face and looked a little serious when he wasn't smiling. But when he smiled, he looked kind and honest. From his face, he didn't look like a treacherous person. He pointed to the 2 young men who were also wearing long robes sitting opposite him and said with a smile, "Zhang Quan and Li Weiguo wanted to perform well tonight, and maybe they would have a chance to win the beauty's heart. But they didn't expect that the beauty already has a boyfriend. Speaking of which, it really makes me sigh." Li Weiguo had a delicate face and looked gentle. He was drinking tea with a teacup in his hand. After hearing Chen Feng's words, he pretended to be angry and retorted, "Chen Feng, your words are biased. In this room, only Zhang Quan and I want to win the beauty's heart?" Before Yi and the others came, who was the one who wanted to perform well? Chen Feng laughed and said, "Didn't you say you two were the loudest?" Chen Feng and said, "Are you?" Li Weiguo looked at Fang Yan and asked, "What do you do, Mr. Fang?" Fang Yan thought for a bit, then said, "I used to be a teacher." "Huh?" Li Weiguo grinned and said, "So it's teacher." "It's a good job. The future of our country is in your hands," Li Weiguo said. "This job is good." But the contempt in his eyes was not concealed. No matter how much they wanted their children to hide their strengths and bide their time, they would not let them become teachers. Those without talent could not do it, and those with talent would not want to be trapped in a 3-foot platform. Therefore, from Fang Yan's profession, it could be concluded that this guy had no background or money. Since Fang Yan's identity had been classified, the people at the scene talked freely and unscrupulously. "Mr. Fang, is this your first time here?" Zhang Quan asked with a smile. It was said that Fatso had a lot of tricks. Although Fatso smiled innocently, his hidden shrewdness could still be seen through his flickering eyes. "This is my first time." Fang Yan nodded frankly and said to the people present with a proud look, "If it wasn't for your invitation, I wouldn't have known there was such a good place in Yanjing. Most of the buildings here are in the style of the Wei and Jin dynasties. Although there are some changes, it doesn't affect the overall atmosphere here. This place is different from other clubs. We don't drink or sing, and we don't ask for hostesses. Everyone bathes in incense and gathers. There are also poetry gatherings where some eminent monks and famous scholars are invited to give lectures. Of course, this is only possible if you are lucky enough to meet them," Chen Feng explained with a smile. "There are exceptions," Zhang Quan said with a teacup in his hand. "If you are a member of the elegant club, you can receive an invitation in advance. Mr. Fang, do you want to apply for a membership card here? The price is not expensive." It only costs more than 300,000 yuan a year. Chen Feng and Mr. Zhong of the Elegant Club are old friends. If he helps you to greet them, you can get a discount. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Thank you for your kindness. I rarely use incense. It's fine to feel it occasionally. You don't want to apply for a membership card? Of course, you don't have money. Feeling it occasionally is fine? That's shamelessly asking for incense." For parties like theirs, sometimes they bought the incense from the club, and sometimes they brought it for themselves. A freeloader like Fang Yan was looked down upon by others. Of course, because of the relationship between Fang Yan and Yi, they naturally wouldn't attack Fang Yan for being poor. How could they talk about money? If they talked about money, they would appear to have no quality and style, but they could attack Fang Yan for being uncultured. They wanted to use their profound knowledge to conquer Fang Yan. They wanted him to clearly understand the gap between them and himself. They wanted him to be ashamed of himself, and to not show his face. So Li Weiguo suppressed his excitement and asked a very stupid question. "Mr. Fang, did you use incense before?" Fang Yan held the teacup and carefully looked at Li Weiguo's expression. It seemed that he was thinking about something very important. After a long time he nodded and said, "I used incense." "That's great." Li Weiguo applauded and laughed, saying, "I didn't expect to meet a kindred spirit today." Li Weiguo pointed to the copper incense burner in the middle of the table that was emitting pale white smoke and asked, "Mr. Fang, do you know what incense is burning in this burner?" Yi and Yi Ro also changed into wide robes with big sleeves. Yi Ro chose plain white. White and black were her favorite colors. Yi chose cyan, like the weeds in spring, looking full of youth and very bright and lovely. Yi looked at Yi Ro in the white robe and couldn't help but praise her, saying, "Sister, you look so beautiful in the Han costume, just like a fairy." Yi Ro smiled silently. She was very fond of her sister. She touched her sister's hair and said, "How can there be a fairy in the world?" "You are," Yezi said proudly. "I heard from my father that if you succeed this time, you will become a fairy." "Sister, although I don't know what the way of heaven is, it must be something great to make my father and my uncles so excited. You have always been the most powerful. Not only in our Yi family, but also in Swallow Dock. You are very powerful in the whole Wuxia." Yi Ro thought for a moment and said, "Fang Yan is also very powerful." "Sister," Yi Ro complained. "Do you like to speak up for him so much? How is he powerful? How can he be compared with you?" "He is really powerful." Yi Ro pulled Yi Ro to sit down on the rattan chair and said seriously, "Do you know he has the heart of Tai Chi?" "Yes." Yi Ro nodded. "So what? Didn't you still beat him black and blue like a pig?" Yes, this was Yi Ro's understanding of Fang Yan. Not only Yi Ro, but many others also thought that Fang Yan's kung fu was just a so-so. The heart of Tai Chi? The name sounded powerful, but he was still beaten black and blue by Yi Ro. In this way, it proved that the heart of Tai Chi was actually a fake product, which was deliberately mystifying by the Fangs. However, they had never seriously thought that Fang Yan's opponent was Yi Ro, who was known as the once-in-a-century genius of Swallow Dock. Because Yi Ro was so powerful, it seemed that Fang Yan was not powerful at all. "He is better than me," Yi Ro said softly. She was not used to talking to people loudly. Even the people closest to her talked to her in a flat and expressionless manner. However, this was her unique style. A kind of domineering and cold personality. Tai Chi has a heart. This is the consensus of all the people in the inner Jianghu who practice Tai Chi hard. Think about it. How many people learn Tai Chi? There must be hundreds of thousands of people in the world, right? But think about it again. How many people among hundreds of thousands of people understand the heart of Tai Chi? And at Fang Yan's age, how many of them are there? Yi Ro widened her eyes and said, "So powerful? But I know. You want to say that he was defeated by me every time we competed, and he even ran away. It was really shameful." Yi Ro rarely interrupted others and said, "Tai Chi is about letting nature take its course and follow the heart." But what was Fang Yan's heart? At that time, he couldn't find his heart at all, but I know that his heart was not as simple as defeating me. What was the point of defeating me? What was the point of defeating a woman? Just like Bai Xiu was always unwilling to fight with me, Fang Yan also thought that it was not necessary to fight with a woman until both of them were defeated. Humph, Yi Rou sneered and said. Those annoying guys. So what if she was a woman? They couldn't defeat a woman, damn the sand pig doctrine. So at that time, Fang Yan had been holding back. Yi Rou lowered her voice, and even her eyes became extremely soft. I hit him hard again and again to force him to use his full strength, but he still didn't do his best. Yi Rou was surprised and said in a low voice, so, Fang Yan had already started to hit on you at that time. He did it early. Chapter 731. This person is too scheming. Yi Rou drew such a conclusion from Yi Rou's story and said angrily, I couldn't see it before. I thought he always opposed you because he didn't like you. Now I know that everything he did was to attract your attention. Sister, why is this guy so scheming? How old was he at that time? He only knew how to pick up girls? Yi Rou didn't expect that Yi would have a different understanding of Fang Yan after she explained the situation in the past to Fang Yan. Anyway, in her eyes, Fang Yan was not a good person. But you were already very beautiful at that time. There are many boys in Swallow Fort who like you. It's just that you don't care about them. That Fang Yan is always glaring at you, picking on you whenever there's a problem, looking for trouble whenever there's a problem. Instead, he keeps loitering in front of you. This method of picking up girls is so old-fashioned. I didn't expect it to be so effective. At that time, Fang Yan didn't like me. Yi Rou said aloud. Why didn't he like you? Why didn't he like you? Yi Rou said angrily. After a pause, she gritted her teeth and said, I know, the person he liked at that time was Phoenix. What's so good about that woman in Yuxiao? She's not as beautiful as you. Yi Rou shook her head and said, Everyone has their own eyes when it comes to liking. How can there be a standard? There is. Yi Rou said proudly. She pointed to her little face and said, Everyone likes me. That's because you're cute, Yi Rou said. I'm cold and always like to hit people. Sister, do you know? You're the cutest when you're cold and hitting people. When you and Fang Yan competed in martial arts, I would be there as long as there was a chance. That's because I think you're the coolest when you beat Fang Yan until he begs for mercy. You're so cool. Even if he knows the heart of Tai Chi, it doesn't prove that Fang Yan is better than you. Yi Rou insisted on her point of view and said, Sister almost succeeded in climbing the heavenly law. Why didn't he? It proves that he's still not as good as you. He had the heart of Tai Chi at a young age, and was already the best disciple of Tai Chi because of his father's death. He observed mourning for 3 years. After he went out, he comprehended the light of Taiji. Only with benevolence and compassion could one have the heart of Taiji. He had the spirit of justice and selflessness and was the best disciple of Tai Chi. He had the light of righteousness and was the best disciple of Tai Chi. This was a principle that all martial artists understood. His heart wasn't bad, but his mouth was too poisonous, which always made people forget about his true nature. Think about it, when did he really hurt anyone? Even when the Fang clan was bullied to that extent a few years ago, after he obtained the Taiji heart, when did he ever find trouble with others? Father died tragically. If this happened to anyone else, apart from Bai Xiao, Li Xiaotian, Zhu Zaidan, and the others from Swallow Dock are all outstanding people, but if they were to suffer such a blow, would they still be able to keep their minds clear? Rou Yi. Tai, can they do better than Fang Yan? Yi Wen Rou sighed softly, her voice filled with deep pity as she said, He has an enemy in Hua City, and an enemy of the country in Yanjing. He has to face a colossus like the Jiang family, and because of Senior Mo, he even has to face the pressure of the Divine Dragon. Every step he takes is like walking on thin ice. It's really not easy. If it was another man, would he have the time to go shopping with you? He still has the mood to joke around with you? Up until now, he still maintains his innocence and smiles. Such a man, I'm afraid it's hard to find in this world, right? Yezi was in a daze for a long time and said, Fang Yan did not have it easy, especially during the years when his father was killed. He seemed to have changed into another person. I don't know what's going on, but when I saw his cheeky smile, he suddenly stopped smiling. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. Seeing that Yi Rou was lost in her own thoughts, Yi pulled Yi Rou's sleeve and said, Sister, Are you really going to marry him? Yiro looked at Yiro in confusion, not understanding why she asked such a question. I always feel that you can look around. Yiro said with a serious face, sister, you don't go out often, so you have less contact with men. I think there are many men out there, very good men. Men who are not as good as Fang Yan. You should look around and choose more. A woman's marriage is a lifetime event. Uncle and the others don't want you two to get married, and there are many obstacles in between. Even if it's difficult to get together in the future, some people will always be hurt. Wouldn't it be better if you can have the best of both worlds? Yiro looked at Yiro and asked, have you ever really liked someone? Yiro nodded and said with a blush, have you? Didn't I tell you? When I was in junior high, there was a boy in my class who was very handsome when he played basketball. Have you ever loved someone? Love. Yiro's expression was a little confused. What kind of feeling could be called love? If you are willing to live and die with someone for the rest of your life, you won't feel bored. Yiro said. Except for him, no one else can. That's the kind of feeling. Yiro shook her head and said, not yet. I'm not even sure what kind of man I will find. Except for him, no one else can. Yiro's voice was still calm, but her tone was unquestionable. If he asks me to marry him, I will say yes without hesitation. So, I will marry him. Yiro was silent for a moment, fiddled with her hair and said, forget it, that's between you two. Why do you explain so much to me? Yiro looked at Yiro and said, I understand your intention. You arranged such a gathering to let me see more men, to see some other outstanding men in Yanjing. But, my eyes can no longer contain other men. I won't even look at them. Yiro smiled bitterly and said, I know I can't hide it from you. My dad asked me to do this and take you to see more people. I don't want to. I understand. Yiro nodded. She wanted to believe Yiro's explanation. And she also knew that there were other elders' thoughts in it. However, since she fell in love with that man, nothing was more important than this. Oh no, Yiro suddenly exclaimed. What's wrong? Let's go and have a look. Yiro jumped up and pulled Yiro out. What happened? I hinted to Chenfeng and others to embarrass Fang Yan. I don't know how badly they have bullied Fang Yan now, Yiro said anxiously. Yiro didn't worry at all after hearing Yiro's words. She was still pulled by her sleeves and walked quickly, but she looked calm and said, it'll be fine. What about them? Yiro smiled slightly. She didn't believe that anyone could bully Fang Yan. They walked quickly and came to the Butterfly Loves Flowers box under the guidance of the waiter. As soon as they arrived at the door of the box, they heard Fang Yan's voice coming through the wooden doors and windows. The heart of wood is placed in the water. Those that can sink in the water are called agarwood, and those that can sink with the water are also known as water sinks. Those that are half sunk are called plank incense. Those that are not sunk are called yellow ripe incense. It's recorded in the Compendium of Materia Medica, not by me. The most precious agarwood is agarwood, which is also divided into different grades. Japanese subdivide it into 5 grades such as white agarwood, red agarwood, yellow agarwood, purple agarwood, black agarwood, and many other names. Agarwood is often not available for money nowadays. It is said that the grade of agarwood is based on the comfort of the taste, and white agarwood is the highest. Of course, I haven't tasted this kind of white agarwood before. The most used one is purple agarwood. After agarwood is red earth agarwood. Those that grew in yellow-colored yellow soil were called yellow soil agarwood. Those that grew in red-colored red soil were called red soil agarwood, and those that grew in brownish-black soil were called black soil agarwood. What was burning in the copper stove should be red soil agarwood. If I'm not wrong, it should be the relatively rare red earth agarwood. Which place has the best red earth agarwood? Someone asked aloud. It could be heard that the voice of the person who asked the question was very humble. It seemed that he had accepted Fang Yan's identity as a fake expert. The red earth agarwood of Fusun in Vietnam is the highest grade, just like the wine of the Bordeaux region. It has a symbolic meaning. When we drink outside, when we hear that it is the red wine of the Bordeaux region, we all feel that it is a grade higher than other wines. The grade of red earth agarwood is determined by age. For example, The quality of the same material buried in the soil for 100 years and 200 years is different. The higher the value, the better. The longer it is buried in the soil, the original softwood parts will be eroded by soil organic matter, and the remaining immortal essence will be lost. Thus, a fundamental change will occur. The aroma will become stronger without the smell of wood. If it is buried for a long time, the surface will crack. This is what people in the industry call carbonization. This kind of agarwood is the best and the most expensive. It is difficult for us small people to see it, but it is not a rare item for everyone here. After Fang Yan finished speaking, it was the peak of the people's questions. Mr. Fang, what do you think of the soft silk agarwood? Mr. Fang, do you have any precious collections? Can you let us broaden our horizons? Don't ask. Let Mr. Fang drink some water to moisten his throat. What happened? It sounds different from what I imagined. Didn't we agree to let these people embarrass Fang Yan? How come they all become his fans in a short time? You're more knowledgeable than me. There was a smile at the corner of Yi Wen's mouth. Ye's expression was stiff. She looked at Yi Ro, opened the wooden door and walked in. Chapter 732. One was dressed in snow-white clothes, elegant and charming, like a fairy from heaven. The other was young and charming, like a beautiful girl next door. Yi Ro and Yezi, the pair of sisters, walked in side by side and immediately attracted the attention of all the men in the room. A fair lady was a gentleman's match. Even if they couldn't wait for it, they could look at them for free. Even the eyes of the only two women in the room were bright and gloomy, as if they were ashamed of their inferiority. Staying in the same room with such women, how could any man notice their existence? Yezi looked at the people in the room with a sweet smile and said, "What are you talking about with Fang Yan? It seems that you are having a good chat." Fang Yan? Hearing this name, many people in the room were moved. They only regarded this young man as Yezi's brother-in-law, and only knew that his surname was Fang. For the sake of Yezi, they also called him Mr. Fang. Later, they learned that he was knowledgeable and knew all kinds of spices that they were obsessed with. Even Li Weigua, who was the most proficient in them, had to admit that he was inferior to him. However, in their eyes, this man was just a teacher, or a knowledgeable teacher who knew some techniques of agarwood and talked calmly and admiringly. No matter how excellent he was, no matter how extraordinary he was still a teacher. No matter how excellent a teacher was, what was he in the eyes of these people? If they valued you, it was because they were courteous and virtuous. If they looked down on you, it was because they were arrogant and disdainful. However, if the person sitting in front of them was Fang Yan, the weight would not be the same. Is he the famous Fang Yan who defeated Jiang Junling in Huaqing? Is he the Fang Yan who forced the Jiang family to expel Jiang Junling? Is he the Fang Yan who had an affair with Qin Yitian? Qin Yitian is the most beautiful woman in Yanjing. Zhang Quan, what are you talking about? It's true that Qin Yitian is beautiful, but there are two beauties standing in front of us. They are no less beautiful than Qin Yitian. Everyone asked questions one after another, and everyone's eyes shifted to Fang Yan. Previously, their gazes were also on Fang Yan, but the way they looked at him then was completely different from the way they looked at him now. Watch. Just like the singers on the stage, or the clowns on the stage of an acrobatic troupe, they would occasionally go to watch, and they would even be willing to drink with one or two of the big stars. But when it came to deep friendship, how was that possible? Paying attention to him was different. You had to pay attention to him, pay attention to his every word and action, and even think about how to respond to him. If Fang Yan was the Fang Yan they were talking about, then all the young masters and ladies in this room should give Fang Yan the appropriate treatment. He would be treated in a manner befitting of his reputation, abilities, and resources. This was class. Yi Ro looked indignant. Not only did they change his script without permission, but they all behaved like this after hearing his name. Are you still young masters who take a few lackeys to flirt with innocent women? Yi Ro looked calm and indifferent, but her eyes were fixed on Fang Yan's face from beginning to end. Even if her eyes occasionally moved to other places, her mind was still on Fang Yan. As she said, since she fell in love with Fang Yan, she would not look at other men. She liked this state. She liked people to pay attention and respect to Fang Yan. It was not that she was vain. She just thought, if others treated Fang Yan like this, it would prove that her husband was excellent and powerful. Well, okay, she was still a little vain. She liked to see Fang Yan being looked at like that. She did not want the man she liked to be despised and looked down upon, which was even more unacceptable than being despised and looked down upon herself. In fact, with her current state of mind, she did not care about being despised and looked down upon. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. Looking at Chen Feng and the others in front of him, he cupped his hands and said, I'm Fang Yan, Fang as in square, Yan as in 2 fires. I do have some conflicts with Jiang Junling, and Qin Etian can be considered as my old acquaintance. However, he is not as powerful as you said. He is just a poor man who was bullied by a woman and moved to Huaxing to be a teacher. Hearing Fang Yan's self-mockery, everyone present burst into laughter. Yi Rou blushed. Obviously, she did not expect that Fang Yan would make fun of her. However, she felt sweet in her heart. Because Fang Yan had closely connected her with him. She was the heroine of this incident. She really liked this feeling. Was this what it meant to be in love? Since there was no point of reference, she couldn't tell. However, she liked this feeling. She was very satisfied. Although everyone was smiling on the surface, waves were surging in their hearts. Indeed, this Fang Yan was the Fang Yan they were talking about. This Fang Yan had dealt with the 4 young masters of Huaxing, who were rather famous in Beijing. It was said that the Lanshan Valley, which was based in Beijing, had become his loyal supporter. The Huaxing's lover, Lu Shu, had become a mad dog beside him. The Jiang family was the most miserable. Not only had their family been destroyed, even Jiang Zhulu, the most famous of the 4 geniuses, had become a prisoner. Even if these people's status and background far surpassed the current Fang Yan, who would be willing to be enemies with such a guy with such a glorious battle record? Chen Feng was a free and easy person. Moreover, he wanted to show off in front of Yi Rou. Hence, he took the initiative to apologize to Fang Yan. Although they didn't make things difficult for Fang Yan earlier, there was indeed a layer of enmity between them. For smart people like them, this kind of thing could be seen with a single glance. It was better for them to resolve it. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I'm just a small character with a small nose and small eyes. What's there to not recognize? We didn't know each other before, but now we know each other, right? We're all friends from now on. Because they heard that Fang Yan was the first to snatch Yi Rou's sister, Li Weigua and Zhang Quan were the most hostile toward Fang Yan. Earlier, they were also the first to make things difficult for Fang Yan. Now that Chen Feng, who was the hidden leader among them, had apologized to Fang Yan, the 2 of them immediately followed suit. Li Weigua personally carried the teapot to Fang Yan and said with a smile, Brother Fang, I'll use tea in place of wine to toast you. Thank you for your guidance earlier. If there's a chance in the future, I'll treat you again to thank you. Fang Yan held the teacup with both hands and said with a smile, Thank you so much, Brother Li. Zhang Quan also looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Brother Fang is a person who really understands incense. I still have a few boxes of good incense here. Although they're not as rare as agarwood, they're also the best red earth incense. You can take 1 box back to have a taste later. If you like it, I'll supply it all year round. The crowd shouted and asked why Fang Yan could supply it all year round, but they could only have 1 box each. Wasn't this too unfair? These young masters and ladies were all slick people. If they wanted to make friends with someone, they would naturally be happy and harmonious. Bathing and changing clothes, drinking tea and eating delicious food, chatting and then having a good sleep. Wouldn't that be great? Except for a few who had to go back, most people slept in this elegant club at night. Most of them were members of this elegant club. The club provided extremely comfortable and luxurious rooms for these members to rest in. Chen Feng walked to Yi and asked if they would stay at night. Yi hesitated, thinking that he would be nagged by his father if he went back. It was better to stay in this elegant club for 1 night than to get a room in a hotel. So he nodded and said, We'll stay as well. Chen Feng asked someone to prepare 2 room cards and said, These are the rooms prepared for you. Fang Yan took the room cards and gave one to Yi. He said, You use 1 room. Your sister and I will share 1 room. Yi Rou's expression was slightly bitter, but she didn't say anything. Yi glared at Fang Yan fiercely, But she didn't expose the fact that Fang Yan and Yi Rou were just a couple in front of everyone. Other people wouldn't find anything wrong, because when Fang Yan entered the room, he introduced himself as "I'm her brother-in-law." Everyone scattered to sleep. Fang Yan took Yi Rou's hand back to the room in front of everyone and said, "Let's go back to sleep." Yi Rou felt sweet in her heart when her little hand was held by Fang Yan. However, she also thought in her mind, men love their faces. Now I let him do whatever he wants. When everyone else is asleep, I will go to sleep with Yi. As the night grew darker, the backyard became quieter. After taking a bath, Yi sat alone in the pavilion in the yard and was lost in thought. Chen Feng, dressed in a white bathrobe, sat opposite the stone table with a bottle of red wine and 2 wine glasses in his hand. "Have a drink?" Chen Feng asked. "Let's have a drink," Yi answered. The red wine had already been opened. Chen Feng poured red wine into the 2 glasses, and then handed one to Yi. He asked, "Is there something on your mind?" "Not really." Yi's eyes were empty. Obviously, she was still immersed in her own thoughts. Clang, Chen Feng touched Yi's glass with the one in his hand, took a mouthful of red wine and said, "Isn't it too unethical of you to do this? You asked us to make trouble for him, but you didn't tell us his identity." Yi glanced at Chen Feng and said, "If I told you his identity in advance, would you still be willing to make trouble for him?" Chen Feng thought about it seriously and said, "Although we are not afraid of him, why should we provoke such an enemy with such a great threat? You also know that even a freak like the general's decree fell in his hands. Such a person can't be a close friend, so it's better to stay away from him." "That's it." Yi shrugged indifferently. Chen Feng looked at Yi and said, "What are you confused about?" "I'm thinking about a problem." "What problem?" "What is love?" Chen Feng's eyes widened, and then his eyes became burning. He said, "That is, no matter when we meet, we will be attracted to her again." Yi thought about it seriously, but in her mind, the tall and straight figure of Fang Yan standing up for her when Meng Jinyu pounced on her. The girl shook her head and threw the picture out of her mind. She said, "This is really a troublesome thing. I still don't know what love is." Chen Feng's face instantly became incomparably complicated. "I'm sitting right in front of you. Can't you raise your eyes and take a good look at me?" Chapter 733. After entering the room, Fang Yan was at a loss of what to do. "What should I do next? Push Yi Rou down? Isn't that too barbaric and reckless? I should take a shower first, right? But I have just taken a shower, and the fragrance on my body is quite nice. Besides, even if I push her down, what should I do next? Is it really so easy to let Yi Rou get my body and my virginity? Every man's first time is extremely precious, and it is the most important and sweet memory in their life. Isn't it too easy to lose it so easily? At the very least, even if the 2 of them really complete the great harmony of life. It is said that men's first time is very fast, and 9 out of 10 men will do it in a second. If I do it in a second, will Yi Rou laugh at me? Even if she doesn't show it on her face, she must despise me in her heart, right? Every time we spar, I always step on you. Now that I finally give you a chance to climb on top of me, you fall down so easily. Are you still a man?" She must be thinking this in her heart. Thinking of this possibility, Fang Yan had a feeling that he would rather die than live. As a virgin, he really felt a lot of pressure. Fang Yan found the remote control and turned on the TV. The TV screen was showing Animal World, and 2 leopards were mating. Fang Yan grinned, but he soon restrained himself. She wouldn't think that I was hinting at something, would she? Fang Yan didn't want to appear too wretched, and he didn't want to change the channel. So he asked Yi Rou, "What do you want to watch?" Yi Rou walked to the living room and sat down, saying, "Anything." This question was too clever and perfunctory. It was useless to ask. Fang Yan put down the remote control, looked at Yi Rou, and said, "Let's talk for a while." Yi Rou looked at Fang Yan strangely, thinking, "Aren't we talking all the time?" However, she still nodded obediently. Yi Rou had a cold personality and didn't like to talk. Moreover, if someone touched her bottom line, she wouldn't hesitate to punish them severely. But when she was alone with Fang Yan, Her docility and obedience could melt anyone's heart. Fang Yan sat down beside Yi Rou. He thought for a moment and moved closer to her. After some thought, he moved closer. When their bodies were close to each other, he could feel the softness of Yi Rou's body and smell the fragrance of Yi Rou's breath. He couldn't help holding Yi Rou in his arms and covering her mouth with his. He thought it was more direct to communicate in this way. Besides, this wasn't the first time they had come into contact with each other. Yi Rou's lips were soft and her tongue was sweet. Although she wouldn't respond too intensely when kissing, she wouldn't bite off Fang Yan's tongue like the first time. Besides, her body was much softer now, unlike the previous few times when her entire body was stretched taut like a tree stump. Now her body was still a little stiff. Experienced people could see that Yi Rou was a little nervous, but Fang Yan wouldn't care about it at this time. All of this was because he was also very nervous. Men were not easily satisfied. He kissed Yi Rou's lips and then began to grope her breasts. Fang Yan always wanted to do this before, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid of being beaten. Today was the best time and the best time. He was in another city, not in the Swallow Fort where people were constantly monitored and suppressed. After shopping for a day, he went to the police station, bought a lot of clothes, took a bath, drank good tea, and smelled good fragrance. The room was elegantly decorated, very stylish and romantic. On this starless and moonless night, Fang Yan felt it was time for him to become a diligent man and start to kill monsters and level up. This was something he had never done before. He was also going to climb to a new height, a new world that he had coveted for a long time. It was said that men were born with an abnormal attachment to women's breasts because the first mouthful of food they ate came from them. A woman's breasts were children's tableware, but most of the time, they were men's toys. They could play with them for a lifetime without getting tired. Yi Rou was thin, but her breasts were round and plump. Unlike those giant breasts that were on the verge of collapse as if two rabbits were stuffed into their clothes, they were firm and well-proportioned. They were neither too big nor too small, which complemented her appearance and temperament. Fang Yan wanted to touch Yi Rou's breasts. Of course, it was a little rude to say so. However, this was the thought that men would have when they saw the goddess they loved. For many people, they would be happy to accept even if she was a little ugly and had a little bigger breasts. Fang Yan straightened his back and slightly distanced himself from Yi Rou's body. Yi Rou opened her closed eyes slightly, as if she had realized something. She closed her eyes again, and took the initiative to stick her body to Fang Yan's chest. Yi Rou began to resist, although her way of resistance was unusually gentle. Resistance is a normal reaction. Fang Yan encouraged himself in his heart. It's not that she doesn't like you, but she hasn't gotten used to being touched by you. She's just shy. When Fang Yan thought of this, he distanced himself from Yi Rou's body again. However, Yi Rou quickly stuck her chest to Fang Yan's chest again. Their bodies were so tightly pressed that nothing could get through. Fang Yan secretly felt sorry for his right hand. He thought, "Brother right, I'm sorry that you've been wronged. Your treatment is far worse than my chest." Therefore, Fang Yan suddenly pressed Yi Rou under the sofa with all his strength. Fang Yan's body was on top of Yi Rou's. He greedily kissed her and reached out to catch the softness. As soon as he touched it, Yi Rou opened her eyes and stared at Fang Yan without blinking. Fang Yan touched it, but Yi Rou didn't hit him. Fang Yan touched it again, but Yi Rou still didn't hit him. Fang Yan grabbed the softness and touched it several times, but Yi Rou still didn't hit him. Fang Yan thought for a while and discussed with Yi Rou in a low voice. "Can you close your eyes? Or I'll cover your eyes with something. I'm very nervous when you look at me like this. I feel like you'll punch me away at any time. I want to take a shower first." Yi Rou bit her thin lips and said in an almost inaudible voice, "Oh my God." Fang Yan blushed after hearing that. His heart raced, his body went limp, and his arms became weak. He almost fell heavily on Yi Rou. "Did you guys hear what she said? She said she wanted to take a shower first. She actually said she wanted to take a shower first." Fang Yan was so excited that the muscles on his face twitched. What will happen after taking a shower? Although Fang Yan is still a virgin, he's not an idiot. Isn't that what we all know? Of course, Fang Yan had the demeanor of a general. He couldn't be too obvious, or women would think he was too lascivious. He also couldn't be too flustered, or women would think he was too frivolous. He had to be elegant and calm. He had to show that he often got a room with women, and that he was familiar with this kind of thing. Oh no, he couldn't show the last one. Fang Yan climbed up from Yirou's body and pulled Yirou up as well. He looked at her pretty face tenderly and said in a low and magnetic voice, "Wait a minute, I'll go get the water for you." Fang Yan thought it was best to take a couple's bath first, because he suddenly remembered that he had never taken a couple's bath with someone. But he often took a bath with a man. When he was young, he would jump into the stone river with Zhu Zidong and Li Xiaotian from time to time. Especially in the summer, he would soak in the stone river for a while almost every day. He also took a bath with Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen. Thinking of their figures, Fang Yan didn't want to think about it anymore. He was very satisfied with this point. He was not only a flirting man, but also a King straight man. In this era where gay sex was the norm and men hooked up with men, it was really rare that the person he liked was a woman. Fang Yan stood up and walked toward the bathroom. He turned on the boiling hot water and carefully rinsed the bathtub twice. Then he drained the dirty water and began to put in warm water for a bath. He tested the temperature and poured the bottle of essential oil into the bathtub. "It's done," Fang Yan shouted. He walked toward the living room and said as he walked, "You can take a bath now." There was no one in the living room. Yirou was nowhere to be found. Obviously, Yirou had sneaked away when Fang Yan was busy turning on the water in the bathtub. There was a note on the table with a few beautiful words written on it. "I said go back to your room to take a bath." Fang Yan stood there in a daze. He had the urge to slap himself. He hadn't completely recovered from the blow until he took off his clothes and soaked his whole body in the bathtub. He felt that he was too inexperienced. How could he run to turn on the water at such a critical moment? Why should I turn on the water to take a bath? He asked himself over and over again in his heart. I'm not dirty and I won't dislike Yirou for being dirty. No wonder there are long scenes of women taking a bath after sex on TV and movies. It's because men won't let them take a bath before sex. Chapter 734. When they met in the restaurant the next morning, everyone looked at Fang Yan with strange eyes. Only Fang Yan knew that he was no different from yesterday. The ugly virginity hat was still on his head. Yirou didn't like shopping, but she liked to go shopping with Fang Yan. In other words, as long as she was with Fang Yan, she was willing to do anything. Even if they didn't do anything, it was a sweet joy to just look at each other quietly. Yirou knew how to drive, so she drove Fang Yan's refurbished and painted antique Hongqi car back to Swallow Dock. Yezi had to stay in Yanjing to study, and there was still more than a month before the final exam. Before that, she couldn't skip classes and run to Swallow Dock. The Yi family attached great importance to studies and the education of their children. Yi Daoling wouldn't allow his baby daughter to be mediocre in both literature and martial arts, and could only rely on him to make a living. Of course, such things were not uncommon among the powerful. Fang Yan didn't go back with Yirou, because he had other things to do in Yanjing. When he was having breakfast with Yirou and Yezi, he received a call from Zhang Jianjun. He asked about Fang Yan's whereabouts and said that a car would pick him up later. Fang Yan said the name of the elegant place, and Zhang Jianjun said with a smile that he knew where it was. He asked Fang Yan to wait in the club and a car would pick him up later. It wasn't until the afternoon that Fang Yan's phone rang again. It was a woman named Qing Miao who called. She said that she was ordered to pick up Fang Yan to the headquarters. Where is the headquarters? Fang Yan asked aloud. You'll know when you get there. Qing Miao was very tight-lipped, and her tone was very impatient. She said, the car is waiting for you at the entrance of the club. She said the car, not she. It seemed that there was a hidden hostility to Fang Yan in her words. This made Fang Yan a little puzzled. When did he offend this bird? Puzzled, Fang Yan still walked toward the entrance of the club. This was an appointment with Zhang Jianjun, and behind Zhang Jianjun stood the old man. Therefore, he could only comfort his slightly restless heart with the words, the king of hell is easy to see, but the little devil is difficult to deal with. After all, even the old man had praised him, so why should he care about other people's attitudes? Swallow Dock had things they had to do. This was a tradition that had lasted for thousands of years. Why would he need to look at anyone's face? Fang Yan arrived at the parking lot in front of the clubhouse. A woman in black tights was leaning against the car and smoking. She had thick eyebrows, short hair, an oval face, and exquisite facial features. She could be considered a unique beauty. Seeing Fang Yan coming over, he didn't ask Fang Yan's name. He pinched the cigarette butt in his hand and said, "Let's go." After that, he opened the door of the passenger seat and jumped in. Fang Yan noticed a detail. She used 2 fingers to put out the burning cigarette butt and brought it directly to the car. She didn't have the habit of throwing cigarette butts around. This made Fang Yan have a slight favorable impression of her. There was a driver in the front and someone in the passenger seat. So Fang Yan opened the back door of the Buick and sat in. The driver started the car and rushed toward the Yanjing city. Because Fang Yan wanted to know where their headquarters was, he paid attention to the scenery outside along the way. He wanted to see if it was a place he was familiar with or a road he had walked before. The woman called Qing Niao also looked at Fang Yan through the rearview mirror from time to time, but she didn't stop Fang Yan's behavior. Obviously, she also knew that this kind of thing didn't need to be kept secret from Fang Yan. The car drove to the center of Yanjing City, and finally drove to the entrance of a small island. Facing the heavily guarded gate, Qing Niao opened the window and handed over a black card. The person inside the gate swiped the black card on the computer, and a huge loan-to case immediately appeared on the computer screen. The guards immediately raised their hands to salute and respectfully returned the black card. They didn't even check the car to see if there were any suspicious people or suspicious items. Fang Yan sat quietly and didn't say a word, guessing the organization and identity of Qing Niao. The river bank and the central island were connected by a bridge. The car quickly rushed across the bridge, but it didn't enter the main gate. Instead, it went to a deeper area on the right. They passed through 2 more checkpoints, and each time, the green bird simply handed over the black card, and they were allowed to pass. The car stopped in a small parking lot, and Qing Niao opened the door and got out. She didn't talk to Fang Yan, but just looked at Fang Yan with indifferent eyes outside the window. Fang Yan knew that he needed to get out of the car as well. Sure enough, as soon as he got out of the car, Qing Niao led the way in front without saying a word. The driver didn't follow them, but drove the car away quickly. After passing through another stone archway, what entered his eyes was a series of small courtyards that were arranged in a picturesque disorder, but not closely packed together. Fang Yan understood what this place was. The Mystery Department. He had long heard of the Mystery Department, and knew that it was a special organization within the Red Wall that specialized in the security of the country's leader. It was also an extremely hidden organization. These people were secretly responsible for the security of the country's leader, and also dealt with some powerful and destructive enemies and very difficult matters for the country. There were many talented people in the Mystery Department, and there were many experts. He had once imagined what the Mystery Department would look like, but he didn't expect the headquarters of this organization to be openly exposed under the sun. In the bushes. Of course, it was in the bushes under the sunlight of the Red Wall. Fang Yan carefully looked at the small buildings, thinking about what kind of people lived in these small buildings. Of course, what he was most concerned about was where Dragon God was. Logically speaking, the people of the outside world didn't know what kind of experts were in the Mystery Department. However, because the Fang family paid extreme attention to Dragon God, and Dragon God's reputation was too great. Therefore, not only the Fang family, but other people in the Jianghu also knew that Dragon God had entered the Red Wall. It was just like how they knew that Azure Dragon had fallen in battle, and that Black Dragon had appeared and disappeared mysteriously. Qing Niao, who was walking in front, clearly felt the change in Fang Yan's mood. She turned around and looked at Fang Yan and shouted, "Don't look around." Fang Yan grinned and said, "I want to see, what can you do?" Despicable person. Qing Niao's eyes were filled with killing intent as she said coldly, "What's your relationship with Bai Xiao?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "You." Surprise flashed in Qing Niao's eyes. She didn't know where she had exposed a flaw that would actually make this guy connect her with Bai Xiao. "Let me guess." Fang Yan's mouth had a hint of ridicule as he said, "Bai Xiao has entered the Red Wall before, and may even have carried out some difficult missions for the mystery department as an assessment. Perhaps you are Bai Xiu's partner in a mission. You, a woman, have not seen much of the world, and have not come into contact with truly outstanding men. Naturally, you will be deceived by Bai Xiu, a pretty boy who is good at scheming. You like him, and even love him. But this is the mystery department. You can only temporarily suppress your feelings in the bottom of your heart, thinking that one day you and Bai Xiu will have the chance to be together. As long as you can have more opportunities to be together, as long as he can obtain the position that he once could. Unexpectedly, Bai Xiu was killed by my sword. So you hate me. Is that so? Qing Niao took a deep breath. Her eyes were cold, and her face was gloomy. She said in a low voice, "You think too much. I know Bai Xiu, but he is only my comrade." "Is that really so?" Fang Yan sneered and said, "I can feel the frequency of your heartbeat. I can even hear the change of your qi when you take a deep breath. Bai Xiu is your Achilles heel, right?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "You should already know what Bai Xiu has done. Even the people above won't tolerate him." Fang Yan looked at Qing Niao with a smile, and suddenly raised his voice and said, "If you don't want your feelings to be known by everyone, then you better respect me a little. You're slandering me, you don't have any evidence." "What evidence do I need?" Fang Yan said disdainfully. "Gong Sunqi and I are friends of life and death. If I tell him that you like Bai Xiu, do you think he will tell everyone?" Qing Niao's expression changed dramatically. She did not expect Fang Yan to be so despicable and shameless, and be able to use any means. She did not expect that Fang Yan actually knew Gong Sunqi, and that the two of them were friends of life and death. No. Qing Niao's thoughts instantly became clear. Because Fang Yan suddenly mentioned Bai Xiu and guessed her love for Bai Xiu, she was caught off guard. However, she was a member of the mystery department after all, and had the experience of carrying out many missions. Whether it was IQ or experience, she was not bad, and her mental reaction was also much stronger than ordinary people. It was just a moment of confusion, and then she returned to her normal level. She looked at Fang Yan with gritted teeth, and was almost deceived by this disgusting hooligan. "Fang Yan, don't try to trick me. Don't underestimate the Azure Dragon. You were injured by Mr. Dragon God, and your Fang family and the Dragon God bloodline have a death feud. Gong Sunqi is Mr. Dragon God's beloved disciple. How could he be your life and death brother?" Fang Yan shrugged indifferently and said, "You're right. Gong Sunqi apologized to me and wanted my forgiveness, but I rejected him. It doesn't matter if he's not qualified to be my life and death brother. Your feelings for Bai Xiu are a fact, and you might even have some secret collusion. As long as I tell this to everyone I see, who do you think they will believe? I don't believe that when you two met back then, you were not noticed by someone with ulterior motives." Qing Niao's expression changed many times, and after a long time, she suppressed the hostility in her heart and asked, "What do you want? Answer me a question." "What question? Which courtyard does the Dragon God live in?" Qing Niao was shocked and said, "You want to challenge Mr. Dragon God?" "No." Fang Yan looked at Qing Niao as if she was an idiot, and said, "We'll take a detour to avoid him." Chapter 735. The Green Bird knew that Fang Yan had a grudge with the Divine Dragon lineage. The Divine Dragon had been living among the people for decades, and the moment he entered the capital, he challenged Azure Dragon, who was at the pinnacle of martial arts, to not underestimate his enemy. He won in one battle, and during the battle, he severed Azure Dragon's tendons, causing his cultivation to be ruined. He became a cripple who treated alcohol as his life. With Azure Dragon's demise, the Fang family fell into dire straits. From the Green Bird's point of view, Fang Yan had 100,000 reasons to hate the Divine Dragon, but he also had 1,000,000 reasons to challenge the Divine Dragon. The Divine Dragon entering the Red Wall to become a consecrator of the Mystic Division was not a secret in the outside world. For Fang Yan to take the initiative to ask about the Divine Dragon Yard's whereabouts, he naturally wanted to take the opportunity to challenge the Divine Dragon to avenge Azure Dragon and his family's humiliation. If not, how would he have the chance to meet the Divine Dragon himself? In Fang Yan's eyes, the green bird's question was really idiotic and ridiculous. Please, do you think my intelligence is on the same level as yours? Ignoring the responsibility and consequences of challenging a high-ranking consecrator within the Red Wall, just the risk of fighting the divine dragon alone was not something he could bear. It would be fine if he won, but if he lost, it was a question of whether he could survive. Even the old drunkard who had entered the heavenly Dao realm was not the divine dragon's match. His tendons had been severed by that perverted old thing. From this, it could be seen that the divine dragon was ruthless. He showed no mercy when it came to killing in battle. As the old saying went, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Fang Yan was a gentleman. Fang Yan was in no hurry. 50 years later, when he mastered his divine powers and entered the pinnacle of the heavenly Dao realm, he would definitely trample that old bastard into mush. If 50 years wasn't enough, then 60 years. If 60 years wasn't enough, then 70 years. Fang Yan was younger than the divine dragon, and there would be a day when the divine dragon would be reduced to mush. He firmly believed in this. Upon hearing Fang Yan's answer, the green bird looked at Fang Yan with even more contempt. She said, I thought you were going to avenge your family in a fit of rage, but I never expected you to be a coward who only knows how to avoid and take detours. Fang Yan didn't care at all. He looked at the green bird indifferently and asked, Can you defeat the divine dragon? Mr. Dragon God has long entered the heavenly axiom realm, and his skills are profound. How could I possibly be Mr. Dragon God's opponent? Qing Niao was extremely respectful when she mentioned the Dragon God's name. On one hand, it was because of the Dragon God's ability. He held a high position in the Xian division, and was indeed highly respected. In addition, because of the hatred between the Dragon God and Fang Yan. Fang Yan's enemies were naturally her friends. Then why don't you challenge the Dragon God? The day you defeat the Dragon God will be the day you become famous. Green Bird sneered and said, You still want to fight when you can't win? Do you think I'm an idiot? Fang Yan nodded his head seriously, but repeated Qing Niao's words and said, You still want to fight when you can't win? Do you think I'm an idiot? Qing Niao was furious and said, I have no enmity with Mr. Dragon God, so I'm not in a hurry to challenge him. You have a deep hatred with the Dragon God. The elders in your family were hurt by the Dragon God. Now that you've met him, not only do you not seek revenge, but you're also afraid to move forward. For a man like you to exist in the Fang family, you deserve to fall. Fang Yan looked at Qing Niao with a smile and said, You really want to see me challenge the Dragon God? That's your personal matter. What does it have to do with me? It's just that as a martial artist, I can't stand cowards. Fang Yan picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at Qing Niao. He said, Do we have enmity now? Why don't you take revenge on me? Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Qing Niao clenched her fists and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Dust rose up from where her feet were standing and scattered in all directions. That was because she began to accumulate strength in her feet. She could rise from the ground and give Fang Yan a killing blow at any time. Of course you don't dare. Fang Yan said with a smile. If you dare to make a move, I'll shout that you're going to kill me. The fact that you're Bai Xiu's girlfriend will be known to the world. Who's Bai Xiu's girlfriend? Qing Niao's eyes were about to spit fire. She forcefully suppressed the hostility in her heart and shouted, Fang Yan, don't slander me. You're angry. A proud smile appeared on Fang Yan's face. He said, Do you feel that the world is dangerous now? Do you know that you can't speak up now? Do you know what it feels like to be wronged? Fang Yan's expression froze and he shouted angrily, Bai Xiu killed my father and repeatedly set up traps to kill me. In the end, I used all my strength to kill him. How did I offend you? Is it because when he wants to kill me, I just lie there and let him kill me? Is that the only way to satisfy you? On what basis? It's all your words. Who would believe it? Who can testify? Fang Yan was so angry that he laughed at this woman who had fallen in love. He said, What does it have to do with me whether you believe it or not? Anyway, I've already killed Bai Xiu. Also, why should I prove anything to you? Who do you think you are? Fang Yan, if you can't kill me, then don't cause trouble for yourself. Fang Yan stared at the woman disdainfully and said, "Do you know that whether it's a quarrel or a fight, you're no match for me?" "Who's no match for whom?" A cold and arrogant voice suddenly came from the dense forest beside them. Fang Yan and Qing Niao looked toward the dense forest at the same time. A young man dressed in black with a delicate face and a strong oppressive aura strode over. The man's eyes were piercingly cold, and there was not a trace of emotion on his face. He gave people a feeling that he was arrogant and difficult to tolerate. "Gongsunqi," Qing Niao whispered. Because of the Divine Dragon's illustrious reputation, almost no one in the Xian division dared to provoke him. The Divine Dragon's beloved disciple, the little Divine Dragon Gongsunqi, was arrogant and rude. He never put his colleagues in his eyes. It was obvious that she feared and disliked Gongsunqi. Fang Yan glanced at Qing Niao, then looked at Gongsunqi, who was walking over with a majestic gait, and said with a smile, "Brother Gongsun, I just told Qing Niao that we are life and death brothers." Gongsunqi's gaze fell on Fang Yan's head and said, "Who's life and death brothers with you? Are you worthy?" Qing Niao also said so. "He said that you're not worthy of being my life and death brother. But I told him that I only look at fate when I make friends, not status or ability. You're just a pile of shit. As long as I find you pleasing to the eye, you're my life and death brother." Fang Yan. Gongsunqi's gaze was like a knife. "I didn't bring any money that day, so I couldn't kill you with my palm. Are you forcing me to make a move? You speak as if you can beat me," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Besides," Fang Yan pointed at Qing Niao and said, "she was ordered to pick me up, so she naturally has to protect me. If you dare to make a move on me, Qing Niao will kill you with one palm." Fang Yan. Qing Niao clenched her teeth and glared at Fang Yan. She had the urge to bite him to death. She really regretted it. Why did she provoke such a scoundrel? If she had known earlier, her attitude towards him would have been slightly better. Even if she had enmity, she couldn't let him find out. Why did she have to cause so much trouble for herself? "What? Did I say something wrong?" Fang Yan looked at Qing Niao and asked. "You picked me up. If someone made a move on me and you didn't protect me, then it would be your dereliction of duty. I'm afraid it won't be easy to explain, right?" Qing Niao knew that Fang Yan was difficult to deal with. She was far inferior to him in terms of eloquence, so she didn't want to waste any more time on the road. The young chief was still waiting for him at the Xian department. Thus, she looked at Gongsunqi and said, "Gongsunqi, the young chief wants to see Fang Yan. I'll bring him over now." Gongsunqi stared at Fang Yan for a long time, and finally said, "I'll let you live for now." After saying this, his body suddenly became shorter. Only then did the clothes on his body start to flutter gently with the breeze, and the long hair on his head also danced in the wind. When he walked out of the dense forest, he came with the force of thunder. He indeed had the idea of killing Fang Yan with his palm. At that time, he was like a sword that had been unsheathed. In the cool breeze, his long hair didn't fly, and his clothes didn't flutter. His entire body was surrounded by the energy around his body, forming a transparent vacuum. It was hard to see with the naked eye, but Fang Yan and Qing Niao could feel its existence. Now that it had given up on the decision to make a move, its body and clothes returned to their natural state. "Look, you're also threatening me." Fang Yan sighed helplessly. "Do you know that anyone who threatens me doesn't have a good ending? When I first came to Huaqing, the school's director threatened me. Then his son was sent to a labor camp. Then Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, threatened me, and now he's in prison. Jiang Junling also threatened me. He was chased out of the Jiang family, and became a wandering ghost. Now you're also threatening me. To be honest, I'm looking forward to your ending. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Fang Yan. Gongsunqi's clothes straightened up again, and the hair on his head froze again. His palm glowed with a red light, and he could unleash a powerful palm knife at any time. He hated Fang Yan to the core. He hated Fang Yan's stinky mouth to the core. "I'm here," Fang Yan replied softly. "Are you blind?" Gongsunqi. Qing Niao hurriedly stood between the two of them. Fang Yan, that idiot, didn't care, but he had to consider the consequences of the battle between the two of them. "The young chief wants to see Fang Yan. I'm going to take him there immediately." Gong Sun Chi's eyes shone brightly, and he didn't hide his ability realm. He thought for a long time, and could only reduce the force again. He stared coldly at Fang Yan and said, "Today I'll let you win with your words, but someday I'll cut off your tongue to go with wine. Look, you're threatening me again. If I were you, I'd quickly shout, 'Auspicious Emperor.'" Gong Sun Chi snorted coldly, turned around, and walked toward a small courtyard on the side. Fang Yan looked at his tall and straight back, and sighed softly in his heart. When would he be able to draw his sword and cut off the dragon god's head, the little dragon god Gong Sun Chi's head, Jiang Junling's head, and Song Zanyang's head and little Dick? Others could draw their swords in anger, but he could only be a lowly person in anger. It was just a battle of words. Even if he won, what was the point? What would he gain? Fang Yan thought about it seriously. At least he was happy in his heart. Well, as long as he was happy, it was worth it. Fang Yan thought in his heart. Qing Miao glanced at Fang Yan, and once again led the way in front. When Fang Yan was about to leave behind her, a clear voice rang out. "Old friend, I'm here to visit. How can I not see you?" Chapter 736. "Old friend, I'm here to visit. How can I not see you?" His voice was clear and bright, and it didn't have any oppressive might or ruthless aura. It was calm and upright, and it was like a benevolent senior that saw a nephew he liked and issued a sincere invitation. The voice was clear, but he could not see who the speaker was or where he was. It traveled through space and time, but it still felt like it was right in front of him. Green Bird was shocked and stopped in her tracks. She whispered, "It's Senior Dragon God." Without needing Green Bird's reminder, Fang Yan had already confirmed the identity of the speaker. He had never seen the Dragon God before, let alone heard a word or two from him. However, he was very sure that this person was the Dragon God. It was like an epiphany of telepathy, or a long-awaited godhood. Dragon God. The immortal Dragon God had a tough life. Fang Yan's mouth was full of bitterness. Had he alarmed this old monster? Did he want to cut off his path of progress? Could it be that he dared to cut him down in front of everyone? Hearing the Dragon God's voice, Green Bird looked at Fang Yan with a mocking gaze. She smiled and said, "Mr. Dragon God invited you to see him. Do you dare to see him?" "He didn't invite me," Fang Yan said. "I don't have any elders who are his old friends." After Fang Yan finished speaking, he strode forward. "Oh, he started running. Coward." Green Bird sneered. The Dragon God suddenly spoke. Fang Yan and Green Bird were not the only ones who were shocked. Gong Sun Chi, who was walking towards the courtyard, also heard the voice. He turned to look at Fang Yan's distant back and shouted, "In this world, there are only a few people who can be called an old friend by Master. Green Dragon Don't Underestimate Enemy is one of them. Fang Yan, the old friend junior that Master mentioned is you. I must not decline an elder's invitation. Green Dragon Don't Underestimate Enemy and your Master have no relationship. I only have a deep-rooted hatred and the belief to defeat him." Fang Yan retorted as he ran. "You little brat." The Dragon God's voice came again. No matter how far Fang Yan walked, that voice would always follow him like a shadow, as if it was right beside his ear. "Azure Dragon, Mo Underestimate is a heroic and outstanding genius. Even though you were defeated by me, you are still worthy of admiration. You don't even have the courage to see me, so how can you talk about revitalizing the Fang clan? How can you take revenge for Mo Underestimate?" Screech. Fang Yan lifted his foot and gently put it down. He stood there thinking for a moment, then turned around and walked back step by step. He walked slowly, as if each step was difficult. However, his footsteps were smooth and did not slow down at all. Since he had already made his decision, there was nothing to regret. Not hesitating to fight. Not hesitating to die. "Are you really going?" This time, Green Bird couldn't understand Fang Yan. He had already run so far away, so why bother coming back? After all, the Dragon God was not Gong Sun Chi. If Gong Sun Chi wanted to make a move on him, he could still stand in the middle and use the young chief to suppress him. However, if the Dragon God made a move on him, who would dare to stop him? If he killed him with one slap, Then even if the young chief had complaints, he probably wouldn't be able to say much, right? Fang Yan ignored Green Bird and walked straight to Gong Sun-chi, saying, "Lead the way." Gong Sun-chi looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully, thought for a moment and said, "If I were you, I would pretend not to hear it." As he spoke, he turned and walked towards the small courtyard. Fang Yan's expression was solemn as he followed behind Gong Sun-chi. Gong Sun-chi stopped at the door of a small courtyard, reached out and knocked on the door saying, "Master, Fang Yan is here. Come in." The dragon god said aloud. Creak. Gong Sun-chi pushed the door open and entered. Fang Yan also lifted his foot and stepped into the small courtyard. Under the eaves of the courtyard's corridor, there was a round stone table. Beside the table were two oval stone chairs, and on one of the stone chairs sat a man in a black robe. The man's face was thin, his eyes were long and narrow, and his skin was white and smooth. He looked somewhat feminine. However, the light in his eyes was restrained, and his hair was black and shiny. When he smiled, the wind blew, and when he did not smile, he exuded power. His eyes were slightly sunken, and his lips were thin and cold. One look and one would think that this person was a sinister and ruthless person. At least, that was what Fang Yan thought. In his hand was a teacup, and he was tasting the Wudong Mountain vanilla tea that he had just brewed. "Master." Gong Sun-chi walked to stand behind his master, and then did not say a word. Fang Yan stood in the middle of the courtyard, sizing up the middle-aged man who was drinking tea. This man was one of the 3 dragons of Wuxia, the dragon god Tu Ming. He was the one who soared to the sky and knocked Mo Qingdi down from his pedestal. Even in the process of the battle, he did not hesitate to use a killing move and cut off the tendons of Mo Qingdi's hand, causing the azure dragon Mo Qingdi to become a cripple. In order to restore his pulse, he had no choice but to travel to the extremely cold lands to find the ice dragon. "Old drunkard," Fang Yan called softly in his heart. At this moment, he was not afraid of the dragon god sitting in front of him. But he really missed the old drunkard who was far away in the foreign lands. They were his elder brother and master, and they were like his father to him. How was he now? Was he still alive? Fang Yan made up his mind. No matter what, he had to make a trip to the extremely cold lands. He had to bring the old drunkard back. No matter if he brought back a living person or a corpse, he had to bring him back to Swallow Dock, back to the Fang family. That was his home. *T. Return home in glory or be buried in the snow country. Such words could be said casually. Who would actually take them seriously? Even if he did not find the ice dragon, even if he could not restore his pulse, Mo Qingdi was still the hero in Fang Yan's heart. The dragon god gently blew on the leaves in the teacup, blowing away the tea leaves, and then gently took a sip. He blew again, and then took another sip. After 3 consecutive sips, the cup of fragrant tea was finished, and he put down the teacup in his hand. The dragon god looked at Fang Yan, who was in a state of deep thought, and asked aloud, "You two must have a good relationship, right?" Only then did Fang Yan recover from his thoughts of Mo Qingdi. He looked at the dragon god with a fierce gaze and said, "Very good. Then you have a reason to hate me." The dragon god said. Fang Yan grinned and said, "You're telling the truth." "But so what?" The dragon god said bitterly. Mo Qingdi's meridians have been broken, and his cultivation has gone down the drain. I heard that the Fang family has a son, Fang Yan, who comprehended the heart of Tai Chi at a young age. He also sailed against the current, and obtained the blessing of the light of Tai Chi that is rarely seen in 100 years. After a pause, the dragon god said bitterly, "What a pity. The heart of Tai Chi has become a stillborn fetus. There is no wind, no force, and the martial art does not advance. Fang Yan, how are you going to take revenge?" In order to save Yi Ro's life, Fang Yan used the mountain-moving technique to move the volcano into his body. After suffering such a heavy setback, Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi became silent, and once again became a stillborn fetus. Fang Yan's physical state could not be hidden from a master like the dragon god, who could see his current cultivation level at a glance. Fang Yan grinned and said, "Will you kill me now?" "Of course not," the dragon god said with a smile. "How can you kill people at will in this red-walled courtyard? You see, you can't kill me now, so I can still leave your courtyard safely." Fang Yan said with a smile. As long as you give me one more chance, I will have one more chance to kill you. Fang Yan, if you want to challenge my master, then defeat me first. Gong Sun Chi said fiercely. What kind of person was his master? Even a junior like Fang Yan dared to say that he would have one more chance to kill him. Did he think he was invisible? Fang Yan waved his hand and said to Gong Sun Chi, my opponent is your master. You are not qualified. Fang Yan. Gong Sun Chi was furious, and he struck with his palm. Pa. A ginkgo tree next to Fang Yan suddenly collapsed, its branches and leaves flew, and the trunk burst, as if it had been hit by a heavy object. Fang Yan stood where he was without moving. He did not dodge, and he did not even show fear in his eyes. He looked at the dragon god with a calm expression, and said, you see, you still don't dare to kill me. As long as I am alive, there is still a chance. Fang Yan. Gong Sun Chi wanted to strike again. All right. The dragon god looked at his disciple with difficulty and said with a smile, can you really kill him here? Master, he has gone too far. I have to teach him a lesson. Don't talk about it if you can do it, but do it if you say you will, the dragon god admonished. Gong Sun Chi responded, and stared at Fang Yan fiercely, but did not say anything else. Master was right, he would not talk about it. When he had beaten Fang Yan to the ground and broken his arms and legs, then he would tell him that this was the consequence of offending him. The dragon god's gaze was on Fang Yan, and he said, is it good to underestimate the enemy? Whether he is good or not, you should know better than me, right? Fang Yan said coldly. This kind of person was really hateful. When he broke the tendons in your arms and made you a useless person, he asked you with concern, asking you how have you been recently. This was not concern, this was a stab in the back. When one is at the peak, he seeks defeat alone. It is hard to find a friend in life, and it is also hard to find an opponent. Underestimate the enemy is able to be my enemy, and it is also my friend in life. The dragon god sighed and said, I heard that he went to the land of extreme coldness to find an ice dragon to reconnect his meridians. If he really found such a magical item, underestimate the enemy will be able to return to the peak, and I will have a close friend that I can spar with and travel the heavenly axiom with. To me, traveling with him is also a great joy in life. Fang Yan laughed and said, I only know that the dragon god has a high cultivation base, but I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned. We are both walking the same path, and as a junior, I really want to know, is your shamelessness innate, or is it self-taught? Can you teach us juniors some lessons? Impudent. Chapter 737. According to the ranking of the inner pugilistic world, Divine Dragon, who had long entered the heavenly Tao realm, could be considered a grandmaster of his generation. Although Fang Yan was young and talented with extraordinary achievements, he could only be considered a rookie in front of a peerless expert like Divine Dragon. A junior repeatedly ridiculing and belittling his seniors. This was not acceptable in any place. Gong Sun Chi was anxious to protect his master. After shouting impudent, he leaped up and punched at Fang Yan. Come back! Divine Dragon called out. Gong Sun Chi attacked with all his might and was extremely fast. Just as his fist was about to hit Fang Yan's chest, he heard his master shout for him to go back. His master's orders could not be disobeyed. He could still change his moves when he had used up all his strength. Boom! The fist passed by Fang Yan's face and hit the air with great force. A strong gust of wind slammed into Fang Yan's face. Gong Sun Chi's body flew backward in the air and landed lightly on the ground. He once again stood behind Divine Dragon. His face did not turn red nor did his heart skip a beat. It was as if nothing had happened. Fang Yan looked at him coldly, but he felt a tinge of regret. Master, how can you let this kid be so arrogant in front of you? Gong Sun Chi asked indignantly. Divine Dragon smiled faintly and looked at Fang Yan. Do you know that you've been played by this kid? I don't know. I just want to help Master vent his anger. Gong Sun Chi looked at Fang Yan with a murderous look. He was already unhappy with this person and disliked his craziness. The last time they met, he wanted to beat him up. If not for his lack of money, how could he have allowed him to be so arrogant? Now that he had repeatedly attacked and insulted his master, as his disciple, he naturally had to step forward to relieve his master's boredom. "You idiot!" Divine Dragon chuckled and said. "What is this place? How can you attack others as you please?" His provocation time and time again was nothing more than to provoke us, master and disciple, to take action against him, causing dissatisfaction within the Xian division and some of the higher-ups. I invited a guest, but injured him. Is this how I treat a guest? What's more, this person was personally summoned by the young chief. Forgetting official duties for personal reasons was a huge crime. Besides, what do others think of me? Where do you think Master is? He was the one who started it, Gong Sun Chi said indignantly. Who would believe a single statement? Green Bird can testify. The Divine Dragon shook his head and looked at Fang Yan, saying, "Within the red wall, it is supposed to be quiet and peaceful. There should be no weapons. You managed to provoke Gong Sun Chi's anger with just a few words. You are rather quick-witted. However, have you ever thought that if I was the one who attacked just now, I'm afraid you would have lost your life with a single punch? Even if your backup plan is exquisite, so what?" Since his thoughts had been seen through, Fang Yan no longer played dumb and said, "Let's not talk about whether or not I can take a punch from the Divine Dragon. Even if I can't, I will just die. I am one of the best of the younger generation in Swallow Dock. Master just brought me to see the old chief and recommended me to be the new master of Swallow Dock. Now when I am working hard for the country, I was killed and injured by you, master and disciple, because of your selfish thoughts. What does the old chief think of you? What does the young chief think of you? Also, although Swallow Dock doesn't have any heavenly path masters for the time being, they have many heroes. They probably won't allow their own family members to be bullied for no reason, right? The heroes of Swallow Dock didn't die in the hands of external enemies, but died in the hands of you, master and disciple. How will the country give Swallow Dock an explanation? Are you here to ruin my reputation? I don't know if you have a good reputation," Fang Yan said. Hearing this, Gong Sun Chi wanted to raise his knife and cut someone again. He was proud and arrogant, and rarely took others seriously. But ever since he met this Fang Yan, why did he always have the urge to cut him with a knife every time he heard him say something? Fang Yan was indeed the most hateful person he had ever met in his life. Fang Yan ignored Gong Sun Chi's existence. He couldn't be bothered to argue with a brat. He looked at the Divine Dragon Tu Ming with a straight face and said, "I know I'm no match for you, and I've never thought of taking revenge for senior brother Mo Qingdi by cutting off one of your arms and one of your legs. However, I dare not forget this hatred. If senior brother Mo comes back, he will come and take your hands and feet. If senior brother Mo doesn't come back, I will come and take your hands and feet. I don't have to worry about the old master laughing at me when I say this in front of you." That was indeed what I was thinking. It is also the goal of my life. I also know that you hate both of us, although I do not know where this hatred comes from. After all, during the sparring match, it was you who ruthlessly severed Mo Qingdi's meridians and destroyed his cultivation. This is even more hateful and unacceptable than killing someone with a sword. You invited me to meet you in the courtyard, but my heart refused and I was afraid, because I was worried that you would kill me without a second thought. But I still came in. I'm not doing this for my own reputation, but for Azure Dragon Mo Qingdi's reputation. I don't want others to say that Mo Qingdi has a cowardly junior brother, who doesn't even have the courage to meet his senior brother's mortal enemy. And I don't want to hear this from your mouth. So I came in. I wanted to provoke you or your disciple Gong Sun Chi. I thought, as long as you and your disciple attack me, as long as I can escape from this courtyard, I will naturally have a way to ruin your reputation as a divine dragon. Of course, it doesn't matter even if I can't escape. If I am killed by you, I believe you will not be able to roam freely inside this red wall, right? There will always be people who will speak up for this, and there will always be people who will sympathize with an innocent dead person like me. This is the worst case scenario. If this is the result, there is nothing I can't accept. I look forward to better things, but who asked my cultivation to not be as profound as yours? Reasonable and well-founded. The divine dragon's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, courageous and resourceful. And the rarest of all, affectionate and loyal. Qing Miao stood at the door, not daring to come in. Hearing the divine dragon's evaluation of Fang Yan, she opened her mouth wide in shock. The divine dragon looked kind and amiable, and did not have the slightest bit of arrogance when interacting with others. But everyone knew that his arrogance was hidden in his bones. He interacted with everyone, but he also looked down on everyone. But no one expected him to evaluate Fang Yan like this, using the word excellent 6 times to describe Fang Yan's excellence. This shameless hooligan, was he really that good? The muscles on Fang Yan's face twitched. He thought to himself, did I really use my talent to conquer this old man? Otherwise, why would he praise me so hard? I just want to live. I just want to live. Fang Yan said in a low voice. If you want to kill me, I can't stop you. I can only ask you for some small interest from my death. How is this considered courageous and resourceful? If I were a really smart person, when you invited me into the courtyard to meet, I would have run away. The divine dragon laughed and pointed at Fang Yan. Running away is indeed the smartest choice. But as you said, if I invited you but you didn't come in, wouldn't people laugh at Mo Xiaodi for having such a junior brother? That's why I came. Fang Yan said. Now that we've met, if Elder Divine Dragon has nothing else to say, then I'll take my leave first. I don't dare to let the young chief wait too long. Have a cup of cold tea before you leave. The divine dragon said. Otherwise, it's my fault for not treating my guest well. He took out a brand new teacup, lifted the teapot, and filled the cup with tea. Then, with a flick of his finger, the teacup flew behind Fang Yan. Fang Yan dodged sideways, and the teacup flew past him, but crashed into him from the front. Fang Yan no longer dodged. He calmed his mind, gathered his qi in his right hand, and reached out to catch the teacup. The teacup landed lightly in his hand, and there was nothing strange. Just as Fang Yan was about to finish the tea in one gulp, the teacup suddenly exploded. Bang! The tea splashed everywhere. Fang Yan's face was covered with tea, and a tea leaf was stuck on the bridge of his nose. Fang Yan turned around angrily, and stared at the divine dragon with a murderous look. This was a humiliation. Gong Sunqi laughed, pointed at Fang Yan's embarrassed look and said, Fang Yan, master only invited you to a cup of tea. Why did you bite the teacup? The divine dragon looked at Fang Yan suspiciously, and did not say a word, nor did he look proud. With his identity and status, this little trick couldn't increase his beauty. It was just a joke to test the waters. Fang Yan's face was dark, from red to purple, from purple to pale, and then back to its natural color. Fang Yan cupped his fists and said calmly, Thank you, Mr. Divine Dragon, for the tea, it's delicious. Fang Yan wiped the tea stain on his face and the tea leaf on the bridge of his nose, and strode toward the door of the small courtyard. The green bird bowed slightly to the divine dragon, and then quickly left with Fang Yan. For some reason, seeing Fang Yan's appearance after being bullied, she did not dare to mock him. The divine dragon looked at Fang Yan's back as he left, his fingers tapping on the table lightly, and did not speak for a long time. Master, it's good to teach this arrogant boy a lesson, so that he knows his place. Gong Sunqi called out. The divine dragon did not respond, and he did not send the guest off with tea to teach Fang Yan a lesson. He looked at the teacup in front of him and asked, Did the young chief also summon you to carry out a mission? Yes. Gong Sunqi nodded. I heard that he wants me to carry out a mission with Fang Yan, and I was thinking of refusing. The divine dragon sighed softly and said, This boy is extremely dangerous, far more dangerous than the green dragon. Do not underestimate him, and work with him at his peak. You must be careful. Gong Sunqi was shocked. Chapter 738. Gong Sunqi was born in the Luo River martial family, the Gongsun family. He was also the disciple of the divine dragon, Ku Ming. His family was rich in knowledge and he was talented. He had achieved extraordinary accomplishments at a young age. It made him arrogant, believing that the heroes of the world were mediocre. Gong Sunqi found it hard to accept that his master had praised Fang Yan and said, This person is extremely dangerous. far more dangerous than the Azure Dragon when he was at his peak. His master had also reminded him, when working with him he must be on his guard. Master, don't boost the morale of others and belittle your own. I admit that Fang Yan is a little clever, but you said that he is stronger than Mo Qingdi at his peak. I'm afraid that's not enough to convince your disciple. Mo Qingdi is a heavenly Dao realm expert. Before Master defeated him, he reigned supreme in the world and was almost invincible. Fang Yan originally relied on the heart of Taiji, but now after Master's experiments, the heart of Taiji is dead. What's there to be afraid of at such a realm? It's fine if he doesn't provoke me, but if he dares to pull those annoying tricks in front of me, I'll draw my sword and slay him. Gong Sunqi truly hated Fang Yan this time. Fang Yan had provoked him time and time again in front of his master, but he was unable to humiliate him. Finally, his master had to take action personally. He felt extremely stifled, unable to vent his anger. Strength doesn't just refer to martial arts cultivation. Ku Ming knew his disciple's state of mind like the back of his hand. He said with a clear warning tone, "This kid is very scheming. He has the ability to kill invisibly while chatting. I'm not worried about you fighting him head-on. However, carrying out missions is fraught with peril. If he were to use extreme means on you during the mission, how are you to defend against it? He can make you panic with just a few words, and I'm afraid that his crafty plots and schemes are also impossible to guard against. He doesn't dare to fight me head-on, and only knows how to use those underhanded tricks. I look down on such a person." Gong Sunqi sneered. "However, since Master finds him difficult to deal with, I will naturally be careful when carrying out missions. I don't want to fail miserably and become a laughingstock." "That's good." Ku Ming nodded. Gong Sunqi thought of something else and asked, "Master, did you send tea to Fang Yan to test Fang Yan?" With a puzzled expression, Lao Ming said softly, "This kid's realm is rather strange. His Tai Chi heart is clearly dead, but there's surging heat flowing in his body, as if he's in a state of Qi deviation. Maybe he has a cold and a fever." Gong Sunqi said sarcastically. He was not afraid of Fang Yan at all. He was not afraid of Fang Yan who possessed the heart of Taiji, and he was not afraid of Fang Yan whose heart of Taiji had become a dead fetus. "I hope so." He gently tapped his fingers on the table, closed his eyes, and pretended to sleep. After leaving the small divine dragon courtyard, Fang Yan's arms, which were hidden in his sleeves, trembled slightly. Just now he had been forcefully restraining himself, but now he could no longer bear it. The dragon god's kung fu was unfathomable. He had only used his finger to flick it lightly, and he had used all his strength to reach out to catch it, but he was still shaken to this extent by the teacup. Walking behind Fang Yan, Qing Miao noticed the strangeness of Fang Yan's arm, but she did not say anything. When Fang Yan spoke, he felt hateful, but when Fang Yan was silent, he felt afraid. When they reached a fork in the road, Fang Yan did not know the direction. Qing Miao quickly stepped forward and said to Fang Yan, "I'll lead the way." Looking at Qing Miao's graceful figure, Fang Yan followed her into a small red building. The small building was quiet and secluded, and there were no signs of people. Qing Miao swiped the black card at the door of the small building, and the glass door immediately shrank to both sides. Walking forward, there was another glass door. She swiped the card again, and the glass door opened up. There was no trace of its existence. Qing Miao stopped at the door of the elevator. There were no buttons on the elevator. Qing Miao swiped the card on a red dot, and then a silver hole appeared on the wall. Qing Miao moved her eyes over to do a retinal scan, and then the elevator door opened with a ding sound. Qing Miao walked into the elevator, and Fang Yan followed closely behind. The elevator whooshed downwards, and after a few seconds it stopped. Dang! The elevator door opened, and in front of them was a wide hall. There were many people practicing with equipment in the hall, and there were two men fighting fiercely in the ring. Fang Yan glanced over there, and just happened to see a man with pigtails twisting the arm of a bald strong man. Qing Miao did not take Fang Yan to the hall, but took him to a remote passage. At the door of a silver steel office, Qing Miao glanced at Fang Yan and said, "Wait a moment." Qing Miao knocked on the glass door, and the glass door opened. Qing Miao stood at the door and made a standard military salute, and said, "Chief, I've brought Fang Yan." Invite Fang Yan in. A calm man's voice sounded. Qing Miao moved to the side, and Fang Yan walked past her. The room was wide, but the decoration was extremely simple. There was a desk, an office chair, and a computer on the desk. Behind it was a row of bookshelves, with a few books on them. Other than that, there was nothing else in the room. Sitting on the office chair was a middle-aged man wearing glasses. He had a kind face, and when he smiled, it was like a spring breeze. Although it was the first time they met, Fang Yan was no stranger to this man, because he often saw this familiar face on TV. The man sat on the chair and looked at Fang Yan with a smile. He did not greet Fang Yan, nor did he say anything about taking a seat. Of course, there were no extra chairs in the room. After a long time, the man finally said, "When I first met Underestimate, he was as young as you. He was graceful and arrogant. At that time, I joked that he was the most handsome man in our Xian division. Now that I see Fang Yan, I have the same feeling as when I met Underestimate. What an elegant and handsome young man." With the young chief praising him like this, Fang Yan could no longer remain silent. He respectfully bowed to the chief and said with a smile, "Thank you, chief. I'm not as good as senior. Each has his own merits." The young chief's gaze was always on Fang Yan's face, and he said, "But the two of you are indeed a little different. At least in terms of character, you're very different." When I praised him for underestimating the enemy, he gladly accepted it. "He's not as humble as you." Fang Yan smiled again and said, "That's why I'm not as good as senior." The young chief smiled and shook his head, saying, "Fang Yan, from the time you were born to the time you walked into this office, all your resume is in my computer. I've studied it for a long time, and I have a certain understanding of you, right?" If someone else had said this, Fang Yan would not have believed it. But when this young chief said this to him, Fang Yan knew that there was not the slightest bit of exaggeration. If he wanted a person's information, it was just a matter of saying a word. "I hope I didn't disappoint the chief," Fang Yan said in a low voice. "This was not the time to make jokes. This was not the time to make jokes." "I'm not disappointed," the young chief said with a smile. He pushed away the chair and stood up, striding over to Fang Yan, sizing up Fang Yan, who was a head taller than him at a close distance, and said, "And you're far more outstanding than I imagined. Even more outstanding than Underestimate when he was young. Perhaps in the path of martial arts, Underestimate is more outstanding than you. But that's only because Underestimate is more diligent than you, and wholeheartedly devoted to the pursuit of martial arts. And you. Sometimes I'm really curious, what exactly is in your mind? The things you've experienced, the way you handle dangerous situations, it's really admirable." The young chief looked at Qing Miao and said, "You already know where this place is, right?" "I know," Fang Yan said with a nod. "Qing Miao has already introduced me to her on the way here. She's a very meticulous person. This is the Xian department. I've long heard of her great name, and my heart is still surging with excitement." Qing Miao looked at Fang Yan gratefully. When the young chief asked that question, Qing Miao's heart almost jumped out. She was in charge of receiving people, so she had the responsibility to introduce related matters to him. But because she was full of hostility towards Fang Yan, she had been delaying this responsibility. Later, after entering the Red Wall, she met the Dragon God and his disciple, and this matter was delayed even more. She thought that according to Fang Yan's character, he would definitely say something bad about her in front of the young chief. Unexpectedly, not only did he not do that, but he even said a few good words for her. This man was really a strange fellow. "Yes, this is the Xian department," the young chief said. "I've been in charge of the work of the Xian department all these years, including the matters related to Swallow Dock. But Swallow Dock is a rather special existence, and many times we still need Comrade Nianyu to come forward and communicate. So, on behalf of the Xian department, I welcome you to join us." The Comrade Nianyu that the young chief mentioned was the old chief that Sir had brought Fang Yan to meet, because the old chief was mainly in charge of the work of the military. In fact, the nature of the work overlapped with the young chief in some aspects. Swallow Dock did not belong to the Xian department, and more often than not, they worked closely with the military. And in some special matters, They had to work together with the Xian department. Swallowdock was under the dual leadership of the old chief and the young chief. Of course, it was in parallel with the military and the Xian department, and was an independent entity. The affairs inside were complicated, and even the current Fang Yan could not figure them out. It's my honor. I also have to thank the chief for your help before, and Swallowdock will remember it. Fang Yan said gratefully. The young chief naturally knew what Fang Yan was talking about, and said, someone crossed the line, so of course we have to kick him back. But it's just a joke between kids, don't take it to heart. Yes. Fang Yan agreed, and pondered the meaning of the young chief's words. The young chief glanced at the time on his watch, and asked in confusion, where's Gongsun Qi? Didn't you inform him? Gongsun Qi had just had a conflict with him, so naturally, he was unwilling to immediately follow behind him to meet the young chief. Hearing the young chief's question, Fang Yan pretended to be casual and said, when I came over, I was even invited by Mr. Dragon God and Brother Gongsun to the courtyard for tea. Brother Gongsun should be here soon, right? Green Bird's heart sank, but she did not look at Fang Yan's eyes. This guy killed people without leaving a trace. He really was not a good person. Chapter 739. The trees were tall and the shadows were eerie. Venomous snakes circled and ferocious beasts stood in great numbers. This was an oppressive primitive forest that made it hard for people to breathe. The river gurgled. A snow-white rabbit walked out from the grass. After looking around, it carefully walked to the river to drink water. It drank 2 mouthfuls and suddenly looked up as if it was frightened. It looked around again, and didn't find anything suspicious. Then it lowered its head to drink water again. After drinking 2 mouthfuls, it raised its head again. The cycle repeated again and again. It looked extremely insecure. Whoosh! A snake as thick as a human leg came out of the river. It swallowed the white rabbit in one gulp. Walala! Water splashed everywhere. Because it rushed too quickly, the snake's upper body was as tall as a person in the air. Pa! Its strength was exhausted. The snake's head fell. Then it slammed heavily into the river. The snake sank to the bottom of the river and disappeared. Only countless ripples were left on the surface of the river. Because of this incident, the forest was in chaos. The birds in the forest flew away and the bats jumped around. Some small animals hiding around the river ran away, knocking down leaves and branches. The scene was chaotic, but soon it was quiet again. The strong preyed on the weak and deceived each other. This was the main theme of this primitive forest where law and morality couldn't cover. Tranquility. A deathly tranquility. The trees were tall and large, with lush leaves. They clustered together like an endless green umbrella, blocking the sun, moon, stars, and people's sight. Looking up, only a corner of the sky could be seen through the leaves. The sky was gray. It looked like it was about to rain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a group of black figures rushed over. Their footsteps were light and fast like lightning. The lake that was several meters wide was no problem for them. With a tap of their toes, they had already jumped from the east bank to the west. Tranquility. Once again, deathly tranquility was restored. Cha-cha-cha. A group of men in green camouflage carrying all kinds of high-tech weapons came over. Their movements weren't as agile as the men in black. When they ran, they made clanking sounds. Their speed wasn't as fast as the men in black. When they ran to the river, they carried their weapons and waded into the water. But this group was large in number. There were at least 30 to 40 people. Moreover, they had a clear division of labor and had great teamwork. Some were the vanguard, some were the cover, and some were the detectives looking for suspicious traces. They were silent. Other than the occasional command terms issued by the commander, they did not say anything else. They were cold-blooded killing machines. How could a machine talk? However, their eyes were filled with anger. The Millennium Palace was the most well-guarded place in the world. It was a palace that only gods could enter. However, 2 men in black had barged in and taken away the core secret of the Millennium Palace. To God's protectors like them, this was an insult, a provocation, and something they could not accept. The Archbishop flew into a rage and smashed his favorite bone cup. He mobilized dozens of God's guards and countless soldiers to issue an SSS-level kill order. No matter what, he had to bring those two audacious devils back. If he was dead, he wanted to see his corpse. More importantly, he had to get back what they had taken. The God's Guardian had people who were good at tracking. They released the White Eagles, hunting hounds, and activated the surveillance cameras in the area. Finally, they locked onto the target's location in the southeast. As a result, the primordial forest became a battlefield for both sides to fight and kill. They searched the forest for 2 days. Originally, they were worried that they were searching in the wrong direction, or that they had fallen into the enemy's diversionary tactic. But 2 days ago, at 4 in the afternoon, they discovered the target of a black-clothed man. Both sides engaged in an intense battle. 7 God's Guardians surrounded and attacked a black-clothed man. When they seriously injured him and prepared to kill him or capture him alive, another black-clothed man shouted, "Eighth Brother's Tooth Leak," and rushed out. While running, he fired a bullet from his pistol and took out a long sword from his waist to join the battle. The masked black-clothed man attacked ferociously. After he joined the battle, the heavily injured black-clothed man was finally able to escape. The black-clothed man fought against the 7 God's Guardians by himself. After chopping off the arm of a god general, he shouted a few words such as "Cry and you will dig together," and "Damn it," before looking for an opportunity to escape and disappeared without a trace. These damned East Asians. The Millennium Palace had expended so much manpower and resources to intercept the 2 thieves, but not only did they fail to bring them back, but one of their divine generals was also injured. That was an incomparably noble divine general, an important figure who could drink afternoon tea with the archbishop. The archbishop smashed another human head cup that he liked, and began to increase the reward and punishment system. Anyone who could kill one of the black-clothed men would be promoted to a god general, regardless of their previous identity. Thus these people all went crazy. Their eyes were bloodshot. They gathered in groups and combed through the forest again and again. No matter what, they would not allow the 2 damned fellows to return to East Asia. Even if they did, they would kill them and kill them. This was the consequence of offending God. Despicable East Asians, they cursed in their hearts. Cha-cha-cha. Another group of men in red robes jumped over the river. They were noble and reserved. Even in this uninhabited forest, they maintained a good image. Northwest direction, 23 degrees. Traces of broken branches found. Fresh wildflower petals fell from the Red Devil Valley. Southeast direction, 11 degrees. Startled birds flew away. Using a language that outsiders could not understand, the earphones in their ears sent out all kinds of information. They were responsible for categorizing the information. We must kill the 2 demons who broke into the temple. This is the price of blasphemy. I must kill my way to the East Asian temple and take revenge on their fake gods. When they were far away, the river regained its tranquility. Puff puff. A string of rapid bubbles appeared in the grass by the river. A face slowly appeared on the surface of the river, like a pale corpse. Whoosh. After listening carefully for a while, and finding no dangerous movements, half of his head emerged from the river. No one would have thought that at the place where the white rabbit was drinking, there was a man hiding beside the big snake. Gong Sun Chi climbed out of the river, and pulled out the 2 blood-sucking leeches on his body. Then he looked at the wound on his left rib and frowned. He fought 7 immortal generals alone. When he avoided the joint attack of the first 2 immortal generals, his ribs were accidentally cut by the 3rd immortal general. The 3rd immortal general wanted to stab his heart, but fortunately he reacted quickly and avoided the heavy blade. Otherwise he would have been dead by now. Fortunately, Fang Yan returned and rejoined the battle, breaking their siege. If not for Fang Yan, he would have been dead by now. A few days ago he and Fang Yan met the young chief. Then they circled around the earth and hid their identities to reach the place where the gods had descended. With the help of a spy, the 2 of them passed through many checkpoints and arrived at the sacrificial temple of Millennium Palace. From there, they stole their target. If they wanted to take the treasure, they would trigger the alarm switch of Millennium Palace. If they did not want to trigger the alarm switch, they could only not touch the treasure. It was not in line with Fang Yan and Gong Sun Chi's character to enter a treasure mountain, but not get the treasure. Thus, the two of them broke the protective wall and ran away with the treasure. After that, they began to encounter a difficult and dangerous escape. The strength of the enemy was beyond Gong Sun Chi's expectations. Although they had seen a lot of information on people on the plain, in Gong Sun Chi's opinion, it was just some boasting of the Westerners. Only Wuxia's martial arts were real martial arts, and only Wuxia's martial arts were real martial arts. Then he was stabbed into this state. Gong Sun Chi took out a bottle of red potion from the depths of his clothes. He unscrewed the cap and drank half of it. Then he poured the other half on the wound. After soaking in the river, the red and swollen flesh that was about to burst open immediately began to reduce the inflammation. The wound also began to heal. With the development of modern technology, all kinds of military medicine had magical effects. If he did not use this medicine to stop the bleeding, he would have been eaten by all kinds of snakes and crocodiles when he was soaking in the river. For a martial artist of Gong Sun Chi's level, this kind of wound was not life-threatening. However, in this primitive old forest, with so many people chasing after him, this wound was very fatal. He could not use too much force or too much qi. If he used too much force or qi, the wound would be torn open. At that time, blood would flow out. He would bleed all the way as he ran. Even if he did not die from bleeding, the blood that flowed out would be the best guide. It would bring a large number of immortal generals and death warriors. Crack! The sound of the grass's soft body being stepped on could be heard. Gong Sun Chi held the dagger in his hand. His body leaped high like a cheetah and stabbed in a certain direction in the forest behind him. Crash! A man in black rolled out and said in a low voice, "It's me." Gong Sun Chi stopped attacking and looked at Fang Yen in surprise. Since he separated from Fang Yen 2 days ago, he had not heard from him. He thought that he had already fled back to his country. Wasn't this what he was capable of doing? Now that it seemed that Fang Yen had returned, he could not hide the joy in his heart. Meeting an old friend in a foreign land, even if it was a familiar idiot, was something to be happy about. Chapter 740. In Gong Sun Chi's eyes, Fang Yen was indeed an idiot. You dared to challenge your own master with that small physique of yours. If I were my master, I would have slapped you to death with one palm. How could I allow you to humiliate me like this? Some people say that a brother is someone you can trust with your back on the battlefield. Gong Sun Chi and Fang Yen were not brothers, so he would not trust his back to the other. Fang Yen would take a knife for his brother, but Gong Sun Chi had 100% reason to believe that he would stab him a few times. Gong Sun Chi did not like Fang Yen, not in the past and not now. He did not like him before he boarded the plane, and he did not like him after he landed. At first, he did not like him because of the great hatred between the two families. His master, the dragon god, had painstakingly defeated Mo Qingdi, the green dragon, and broke Mo Qingdi's tendons. This caused Mo Qingdi to become a cripple, and also caused the Fang family's luck to plummet. Although the dragon god had painstakingly defeated Mo Qingdi, this did not stop Gong Sun Chi from hating and viewing Fang Yen as an enemy, because he knew that the Fang family would never forget this hatred, and they would definitely find a way to seek revenge. This was also the reason why people in ancient times liked to play the game of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. Later on, he did not like him because he did not like Fang Yen as a person. He felt that Fang Yen was too proud, too arrogant, and did not understand the principles of how to conduct oneself. His master was the dragon god, and it was natural for him to be proud and arrogant. Your senior brother Mo Qingdi has become a useless drunkard. What is there for you to be proud of? When you meet me, you call me brother, and when you eat, you give me a toast. Isn't this a matter of course? What he hated the most was the way Fang Yen spoke, as if every word and sentence carried a halo of mockery. If you could listen to his complete sentence and still resist the urge to cut him in half, it proved that you were very good at keeping your composure. A battle of words. He did not understand the weight of these words before. In the past, he didn't understand the weight of these words. Ever since he met Fang Yen, he deeply understood that some people were really King despicable. However, Gong Sun Chi was still very happy to see Fang Yen. This didn't mean that he started to like Fang Yen, but because he thought that if he couldn't escape, Fang Yan couldn't escape either. Fang Yan was dressed in black, and had a black hat over his head. Only his facial features were exposed. This was to prevent others from spying on their true identities when they were on the move. There were many tears on his clothes, some were cut by swords, some were pierced by bullets, and most of them were torn by the thorns and branches in the forest. Their nocturnal clothes were specially made, but they could not withstand such a degree of magic damage and tearing. Phew! Fang Yan took a deep breath and pulled down the mask on his head. His face was painted black, and so were his lips and teeth. The Prince Charming of Swallow Dock looked more like a psycho than anything else. Because of the hot forest, Fang Yan was sweating profusely, and his hair was wet. It was as if he had just climbed out of the river like Gong Sun Chi. Fang Yan looked at the wound under Gong Sun Chi's ribs and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" "I won't die," Gong Sun Chi replied. "It's good that you won't die," Fang Yan said happily. "One more person means one more power. Even if you can't kill people, you can help me lure some people away." "You use me as bait?" Gong Sun Chi said angrily. "Don't be angry, don't be angry." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "How can I use you as bait? You are my comrade in arms, my brother. In this strange forest, the two of us can only go hand in hand and live and die together." Gong Sun Chi felt a little better. Although he didn't want to be a comrade in arms or a brother with Fang Yan, it was still in his interest to go hand in hand and live and die together. He was injured now, but he was injured. In fact, he was a burden. The fact that Fang Yan was willing to bring him along proved that this person's character wasn't so bad that it would make people's hair stand on end. "Which direction did you come from?" Gong Sun Chi asked the question that he was concerned about. "From the northwest," Fang Yan said. "I set up some traps there, then ran along the Red Devil Valley for a long time, then returned along the original path. Now they should be chasing towards the Red Devil Valley, thinking that we took that route. After all, that route is the easiest to walk to the border of Myanmar. As long as we pass the border, I don't think they would dare to bring so many people to look for us." Gong Sun Chi pointed to the small river beside him and said in a low voice, "I was hiding under the tree roots by the river just now, and 3 groups of people passed by. There were god generals, god servants with heavy weapons on the periphery, and their priests." "I know." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I waited for them to pass by before coming back to find you." "How did you know I was here?" "I didn't know before, but I followed their search route and came back. I just happened to see you climbing out of the river." Gong Sun Chi frowned and looked up at the thick clouds that were getting lower and lower in the sky. He said, "What do we do now?" "It's very difficult." Fang Yan's expression was also quite serious. He said, "We are now being attacked from both the front and the back. The first group of people who were chasing us ran ahead of us, and they may have already set up a trap at the edge of the forest. If we want to enter Myanmar from the border, we may fall into their ambush. There are still people coming from behind, and once they find out where we are, they will be able to surround us from all directions, constantly reducing the space we can move around. In the end, there will be less and less space for us to move around, and we will still be trapped by them." Gong Sun Chi snorted and said, "I know all this. Let me ask you, what should we do now?" Seeing the dissatisfaction on Gong Sun Chi's face, Fang Yan thought to himself, "This guy really doesn't want to admit defeat. Even now he is still arrogant." He smiled and said, "You don't have to worry no matter what, I will not leave you behind." Fang Yan's words irritated Gong Sun Chi's sensitive nerves, and a touch of deep red appeared on his pale face. He said angrily, "What do you mean by you will not leave me behind no matter what? Do I need you? I can still go back without you, but you better pray for yourself. You and I don't see eye to eye. Let's separate here and run for our lives." "That won't do," Fang Yan said with a serious face. "You are seriously injured. Without my help, you will only die. My death is my own business. What does it have to do with you?" "In that case," Fang Yan smiled and said, "you stay behind, I will go first." "You." Fang Yan patted Gong Sun Chi on the shoulder and said, "Take care." Fang Yan glanced at Gong Sun Chi, and then quickly disappeared into the forest like a nimble rabbit. Gong Sun Chi was stunned for a long time. and the muscles on his face kept twitching. This bastard. He abandoned me just like that? Didn't we agree that we are comrades and brothers? Whoosh! Fang Yan slid down from a towering tree, covered the mouth of the divine servant at the back of the team, and used a sharp blade to cut his neck. Blood spurted out, but because Fang Yan's gloved hand covered the wound, it did not splatter everywhere. His body first stiffened, and then slowly became limp. His soul was taken away by the god of death, and all the strength in his body dissipated. His legs softened and he fell down. Fang Yan dragged his body and slowly put him down on the grass. The gun in his hand fell to the ground, but Fang Yan lightly kicked it with the tip of his foot, and the gun flew into the air again. He picked it up in one go to avoid making any noise. Screech! A grasshopper in the grass was startled and jumped toward the tree trunk. Someone in the team ahead turned around. Pa! A bullet flew past the side of Fang Yan's face. Fang Yan did not stop, and his body rolled toward a tree in front of him that was as thick as a person. Pa 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 pa! Rows of bullets swept over, hitting the place where Fang Yan was just standing. If Fang Yan was a little later, his body would have been smashed into a pulp by now. The target has appeared. The devil is here. Someone shouted. The soldiers immediately found cover, and began to bombard the tree that Fang Yan was hiding in. The bark of the tree was smashed, the trunk was riddled with countless holes, and the weeds under the tree were charred black. However, there was no sound behind the tree, as if the target had been killed. The commander issued a ceasefire order, and all the divine servants in the bunkers immediately stopped firing. They waited quietly, waiting for news of Fang Yan's escape or his death. Unfortunately, after waiting for a long time, there was no movement behind the tree. There was a deathly silence. The commander spread his fingers and clenched them into a fist. The soldiers understood and immediately spread out, walking toward the tree step by step. Pa! A sound came from behind them. They quickly turned around, raised their guns, and fired at the source of the sound. Pa 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 pa! Bullets flew, and the black shadow disappeared in a flash. Another divine servant's corpse was left on the ground. That damned devil, he had somehow sneaked up behind them. The commander was furious. He raised his arm and waved it in the air. The divine servants understood the commander's intention, and they turned around and rushed toward the place where the black shadow disappeared. They fired as they ran, but did they find any trace of the target? Maybe they would be lucky and hit the devil's head or heart. Fang Yan ran through the dense forest and returned fire with his gun. Eighth brother's teeth. Fang Yan roared angrily. He felt that his Japanese was getting better and better. At least this sentence was very good. Chapter 741. Sweat and blood mixed together, turning into a pungent smell that even Fang Yan himself could not accept. This smell was strong for a long time, and it was difficult to hide from the hounds and the white eagles. All the disguises and traps that Fang Yan had set up previously were no longer effective, and the divine generals and priests who had received the request for reinforcements were gathering here on a large scale. They surrounded Fang Yan from all directions according to the satellite positioning system, and were constantly compressing the space that Fang Yan could move in. When the space became smaller and Fang Yan had no place to hide or take a detour, the only thing that awaited him was death. Or something even more terrifying and cruel than death: capture alive. The killing was intense. Fang Yan's gun had long been emptied of bullets, and he did not have a magazine that could be changed, so he could only use it as a heavy weapon and throw it out to smash people. For an expert of his level, even falling leaves and falling flowers could hurt people, let alone such a heavy metal weapon. Therefore, when he used the empty gun to smash the head of a divine servant, causing him to fall to the ground with his face covered in blood, his body had already burrowed into a dense wild banana bush. He's a demon, kill this demon. Requesting reinforcements, he ran into the banana forest, reporting the latitude. Everyone spread out, be careful of his sneak attacks. This small team originally had more than 20 people, but in the process of chasing Fang Yan found an opportunity to kill more than a dozen of them. They only had about 10 people now, and they were in hot pursuit, waiting for reinforcements. The divine generals and priests would also know their current movements based on the satellite positioning system on them. In addition, They had to be on guard against Fang Yan's counterattack and the annihilation of the entire team. They were not afraid of death, and they had long given their lives and everything to the gods, but they did not want to die in the hands of a demon. Fang Yan used his brilliant skills and sharp killing methods to obtain their recognition, and became the demon in their words. The sky was getting darker, and the air was getting thicker. They were no longer breathing fresh oxygen, but an unknown substance that was warm like burning gypsum. It was going to rain. Let's have a rain, Fang Yan thought to himself. His body could adapt to any kind of environment, but he really didn't like this kind of suffocating work, as if he was fighting for his life in a huge wet spider web that he couldn't break free from. The banana trees were tall and dense. Large patches of leaves connected to form a barrier, blocking the vision of those who came later. The group of divine servants rushed in, and found that they had lost track of Fang Yan. The commander gestured for everyone to be careful, and then divided the remaining team members into 3 groups. He led one group to the center line, while the other 2 formed a fan-shaped encirclement on the left and right. Heading deeper into the darkness, swoosh, a colorful venomous snake that was more than a meter long slithered down from the top of the banana tree, and pounced toward the commander who was walking at the front. It opened its sharp mouth and bit towards the commander's neck with its long and sharp fangs. Screech, a red light flashed. The commander held a gun in one hand and a tri-edge bayonet in the other. When the venomous snake pounced, he took out the bayonet and cut off the venomous snake's head. For people like them, this kind of monster really didn't have any deterrence. The snake's blood spurted out. He liked the refreshing feeling of cleanly cutting off the target's head. It would have been even better if he had cut off the heads of the 2 men in black. Just when he was praising himself in his heart, a crisis came. Fang Yan, who had disappeared without a trace, reappeared. He leaped up from the hole covered in dried leaves, and crawled on the ground like a giant lizard. He stabbed the dagger in his hand at the lower 3 arteries of the divine servants. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He stabbed 3 times. 3 divine servants covered their crotches and rolled on the ground. The 3 men lost the joy of being a man, and were castrated by him. Pa pa pa, a dense barrage of bullets flew towards Fang Yan's body that was rolling on the ground. Fang Yan rolled on the ground twice, and his body once again disappeared from their sight. He's a damned devil. They cursed angrily. Fang Yan's speed was too fast, so fast that it was simply unbelievable. When they discovered him, he had already rushed in front of them and killed them. When they raised their guns to counterattack, he disappeared again. This was not an opponent of the same level at all. Before the arrival of the black-robed divine generals and red-robed high priests, these divine servants were just a group of pitiful cannon fodder used to restrain the enemy. Just when these divine servants shouted and wanted to chase after him, Fang Yan turned around and attacked again. Screech! He threw the dagger in his hand and stabbed it into the throat of a divine servant. The divine servant covered his throat, and before he could fall to the ground, he had already flashed past him, pulled out the dagger from his throat, and stabbed the chest of another divine servant. Fang Yan had to get rid of all these people. He knew that they had tracking devices on them. He didn't want them to follow him like a pack of wild dogs. Once again, the battle became intense. Gong Sun Chi was lying in a hidden tree hole, his mouth quickly chewing a ripe wild banana. He didn't escape in the direction that Fang Yan had left. Instead, he found a more secluded tree hole nearby to hide. Now was the time when the divine servants and divine generals of the Millennium Palace were searching for him. His physical condition wasn't very optimistic. If he encountered a situation where there were 7 against 1 again, he wouldn't be able to hold on, of course. Even if he encountered 1 or 2 divine generals, his situation wouldn't be optimistic either. However, he wouldn't admit this point. The injury under his armpit was very serious. Not only was his flesh cut, but even his bones were injured. Although he had used an effective genetic agent to heal the wound, it was only on the surface. The internal injury still couldn't be healed, and it would take a long time to recover. He couldn't use force or chi, and there were strong enemies in front of him and pursuers behind him. In such a dangerous ancient forest, there weren't many options left for him. Am I going to die? Gong Sun Chi suddenly had this thought. Tui tui tui. Gong Sun Chi hurriedly chased this inauspicious thought out of his head. How could he die? He was the disciple of the dragon god. He was a genius, wise and powerful. He hadn't reached the peak of his life yet. How could he die? Before coming out to carry out the mission, he never thought about the word death, because he felt that such a thing was very far away from him. Who could kill him in this big world? But now he had no choice but to face such a tragic and bitter problem. He could really be killed. In this strange ancient forest where there was only killing and no humanity, he had no one to rely on and was seriously injured. His only teammate. Thinking of Fang Yan, Gong Sunqi gritted his teeth in hatred. That bastard. He abandoned his comrade just like that and ran away on his own? It's fine if I die in battle, but if I go back I'll definitely report him. Gong Sunqi made this decision in his heart. But soon he overturned this thought. If he went back and reported that Fang Yan had heartlessly abandoned his comrade, wouldn't that be admitting to the higher-ups that he was inferior to Fang Yan, and that he had to rely on Fang Yan's help during the mission to return? This wouldn't do. The proud Gong Sunqi wouldn't accept the fact that he was inferior to Fang Yan. I'll never go out on a mission with Fang Yan again, he thought to himself. Moreover, he shouldn't have gone out on a mission with Fang Yan in the first place. The two of them were born to be mortal enemies. His master had seriously injured his senior, so he hated his master and himself. How could he help him? It was already kind of him not to hack him to death when they met just now. Could it be that he thought that he would definitely die in his current situation, so he didn't kill him? He thought that he couldn't break out of the encirclement. Since he had nothing to do here, Gong Sunqi opened his brain and let his imagination run wild. There were some things that he had to think about, and some things that he had to be on guard against. If Fang Yan really wanted to take this opportunity to silence him and avenge his senior, Gong Sunqi really couldn't do anything to him. Fang Yan didn't need to do anything. He only needed to lure the godly generals to his hiding place. Thinking of this possibility, he quickly peeked outside the tree hole. With just a glance, he really did see two men in black robes walking towards him. They might have already discovered his whereabouts and were creeping towards him, trying to catch him off guard. Their black boots made no sound as they stepped on the grass. Even the most agile rabbit would make a louder sound than them. Gong Sunqi threw away the banana peel in his hand and gripped the long sword at the side tightly. He was the disciple of the dragon god. Even if he died, he would die in battle. With this thought, he dashed out of the tree hole with his long sword and ran towards the forest on the left. When the two godly generals realized that their target had escaped, they didn't hide their whereabouts anymore. With a flap of their black robes, they chased after Gong Sunqi. The two of them attacked from the left and right, one wielding a long sword and the other a trident, forming a perfect killing formation that was hard to defend against. Gong Sunqi felt danger. He dashed a few steps forward and ran towards a tree that was more than a meter wide. He rushed up the tree trunk and ran straight towards the top of the tree. The black-robed godly general chased after him. The two of them continued to attack Gong Sunqi from the left and right. When Gong Sunqi was about to reach the top of the tree, he leaped forward. Riding on the wind on his sword, he was like an exiled immortal. Chapter 742. Blood, drop by drop, dripped down. The emerald green grass beneath his feet was dyed red, and even the moist soil was once again diluted into a puddle of mud. Because he had exerted too much strength, the wound under Gong Sunqi's right rib was pulled open again. Blood seeped out from the wound and soaked his clothes, then dripped down from the corner of his clothes to the ground. His eyes were like a wolf's as he stared at the two men in black robes in front of him. They were two tall, blonde men with pale skin and deep eyes that glowed with a green light. Gong Sunqi was a wolf, a ferocious and relentless wounded wolf that would fight to the death. They were also like wolves, greedy, noble, and bloodthirsty wolves. Gong Sunqi held the sword in his right hand. The body of the sword, called cloak, was trembling slightly, and a pool of blood flowed out from the groove of the sword, then flowed down the tip of the sword. The blood on the sword was the enemy's blood. Gong Sunqi desperately stabbed the divine general with Neptune's trident, and paid the price of being ruthlessly slashed by the other divine general with a long saber. That saber slashed his back, and he couldn't check the wound, but he could feel the flesh on his back being flipped open, and blood spurting out like a fountain. If it wasn't for his excellent dodging skills, he would have been slashed in half by that divine general. These divine servants indeed had powers that were incomprehensible to the outside world. Gong Sun Chi's legs were weak, and he felt that he could fall at any time. He had used up all the strength in his body. Or rather, all the strength in his body had been used up along with the blood that flowed out. In these 2 days he had lost too much blood. Because of his severe injuries, every movement he made required more than 10 times the strength than before. He used his strong willpower to control his body, as well as the pride that made him feel superior at all times. He didn't want them to tremble too obviously, because that would be very embarrassing for him. Yes, he was such a proud man. In the Xian department, he was very proud because his master was the divine dragon. In front of Feng Yan, he was very proud because his master was the divine dragon. He was equally proud in front of these divine generals of the Millennium Palace because his master was the divine dragon, the most powerful man in Wuxia. These clowns. His expression was cold, but his heart was filled with disdain for these people. If I hadn't been injured, if I had been at my peak, I would have killed all of you with a swift knife. He knew that he couldn't bear the next charge in his current condition. However, the 2 immortal generals were still alive. Puff! Gong Sun Chi spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood dyed his mask red, leaving a choking sour taste in his throat. He reached out, pulled off his mask and threw it away. He faced the 2 divine generals with his cold, handsome face. Am I going to die? Gong Sun Chi muttered to himself. He took out a black ribbon from his bosom and used it to tie the sword tightly to his right hand. Because his hands had no strength left, he was afraid that he would throw the sword out when he slashed. As long as this arm was still in his body, he hoped that the cloak sword would still be in his hands. This was the dignity of a swordsman. Master, I'm sorry, Gong Sun Chi said with a face full of guilt. You're the number 1 in Wuxia, but I didn't even get to learn 1/10,000th of your martial arts. I wanted to challenge the heroes of the world after I mastered the martial arts and make a name for myself. It seems like I won't have the chance to do so now. That's good too. I'll take it that you don't have a disappointing disciple like me. He thought of Feng Yan again. He really hated this guy. However, at this moment, he still hoped that he could escape from this dangerous place and return safely. What an annoying guy, Gong Sun Chi thought to himself. However, I still hope that you will be able to return safely, because only then will we be able to return the treasures we stole. And only by returning the treasures will we be able to complete our mission. Even if I die, it won't be in vain. He tied the black ribbon into a dead knot, then used his teeth to pull it hard. Tui. He spat out a mouthful of saliva, then bent his body slightly and leaned his upper body forward in a charging posture. In his current state, it was already difficult for him to defend against the encirclement of the 2 divine generals. As long as they charged again, he would be chopped into meat paste. However, the remaining energy in his body was just enough for him to make one more attack. An attack with no chance of survival. Even if he died, it would be because he killed the enemy first, and then get killed. Thinking about it, he still felt embarrassed. But what could he do? To Gong Sun Chi, this was the most dignified way to die. Master. Gong Sun Chi thought for a while, then said in a deep voice, I can't kowtow to you anymore. He tightened his grip on the long sword in his hand, then rushed towards the 2 impatient divine generals. Rumble. A sudden clap of thunder tore through the sky, and a majestic rain poured down. Whoosh, the curtain of rain covered the heaven and earth, as if the whole world was covered by this rain of arrows. Swoosh, Gong Sun Chi fell to the ground, panting, his whole body submerged in the muddy water. There were countless wounds on his body, and a few of them had penetrated deep into his internal organs. The muddy water is too dirty, and the posture is too unsightly. Gong Sun Chi felt very uncomfortable. He really wanted to ask the 2 divine generals if they could help him up, or change his posture. On one hand, there was a language barrier, and on the other hand he was even more unwilling to ask for help. I'm going to die anyway, and no one will see me when I die. He comforted himself. Kacha. The man holding the trident walked towards him step by step. Kacha, kacha. His boots stepped on the muddy water, making a piercing sound. Where is the divine weapon? He asked in a language that no one could understand. Gong Sun Chi lay there motionlessly thinking, is this guy an idiot? If you don't speak the Wuxia language, who knows what you're saying? Hand over the divine weapon, or you'll go to hell. Gong Sun Chi closed his eyes powerlessly. He could feel the sharp weapon in the man's hand. Kacha! The man in black raised the trident high and smashed it towards Gong Sun Chi's head. Swish, a silver light flashed, and the man's raised arm fell to the ground, along with the trident in his hand. The divine general holding the long blade was shocked, and rushed towards the man in black who had suddenly appeared. The man in black advanced instead of retreating, raising his sword and rushing towards him. Kacha! The two brushed past each other. The man in black looked at him with a face full of unwillingness, unable to believe what had happened in front of him. Crack! The man in black's body was split into two, and the lower half of his body was still standing. Fresh blood sprayed into the air, and then it was slapped down by an even denser rain. The man with the trident looked at his arm that had been split in two, but he didn't feel any pain. He was stunned for a moment, and then the red light in his eyes blazed. Roar! Charge! His body leapt high into the air, and his good arm clenched into a fist. The fist carried a strong gust of wind, and countless raindrops smashed towards the man in black's head. Swish, another silver light flashed. The divine general's other arm was also cut off. His body flew past the man in black, blood spurting out of his body. Swish, 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 swish. The man in black's body counterattacked, and he chased after him, striking continuously. When he stopped moving, the divine general's body could no longer stand up. What happened? Gong Sun Chi opened his eyes. I'm still alive? Crack, crack. Someone walked towards him step by step, and then stood in front of him. He wanted to look up, but he didn't even have the strength to do so. Half of his face was buried in the muddy water, and he struggled to breathe. If the rain had been any heavier, his whole head would have been buried. At that time, even if the divine general of Millennium Palace didn't kill him, the rain would. Are you all right? A familiar voice sounded by his ear. Gong Sun Chi's mind shook, and his groggy consciousness became much clearer. Fang Yan? He asked aloud. He didn't speak when facing those divine generals, because he was worried that his words would expose his nationality. It's me. Fang Yan pulled down the mask on his face, and looked at the motionless Gong Sun Chi, and asked again, Are you all right? What do you think? Gong Sun Chi said through gritted teeth. He's already like this. Do you think I don't look like I'm fine? I think something is wrong. Fang Yan said seriously. I'll pull you up? Go ahead and pull me up. Do you think I'll refuse such a request? Thus, Fang Yan reached out and pulled Gong Sun Chi out of the muddy water. He leaned his upper body against a tree, and took out some ointment from his pocket to treat him. You don't look good. Fang Yan said as he inspected the wounds on his body. Why did you come back? Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yan and asked. Fang Yan's arrival gave him a glimmer of hope. He knew that perhaps he wouldn't die. I hate you very much, Fang Yan said. As he spoke, he poured the potion in the bottle on the biggest wound on Gong Sun Chi's body. One bottle of potion wasn't enough, and 2 bottles weren't enough either, so he took out all the potions he had. After thinking about it, he stuffed another bottle back. I also know you hate me, Fang Yan said. I do hate you. Gong Sun Chi's voice was weak, but he said stubbornly. But I still don't want you to die, Fang Yan said in a deep voice. You and your disciple owe me. I'll get it back from you. But now, I can't let you be killed by these foreigners. I've said it before, we're brothers, comrades in arms. Gong Sun Chi's eyes were moist, and there was something tickling his throat, making him want to say something. You don't have to say anything. I can understand your feelings at this moment. I know what I'm doing is quite touching. Fang Yan patted his shoulder gently and said, I'm lying in the muddy water and can't move. Gong Sun Chi's voice was bitter, hidden in the sound of the wind and rain, emerging bit by bit. Don't tell anyone. Chapter 743. Lotus Flower Temple. Because the temple was not famous, it usually did not receive much incense. Except for a few faithful believers who would come to burn incense and pay respects to Buddha on Buddha's birthday, almost no one paid attention to it most of the year. However, there were a few young guests at the entrance of Lotus Flower Temple today. "Big brother, it's here," I asked someone. "Even if you want to become a monk, you should find a better temple. Look at this temple door, it's broken, it looks like it will fall if you push it." "Third sister, what are you talking about? We are here to take Xiao Xiao back." Tung ignored the dispute between his cousins. He looked at the Lotus Flower Temple located deep in the mountains, and then stepped forward to knock on the copper lock of the wooden door. After knocking for a long time, no one answered. "Is there anyone here?" And Xiaojun had a bad temper. He jumped up and shouted at the temple, "Are the people inside deaf?" Creak. The wooden door opened and a skinny old nun looked at the few young people at the door and asked, "Benefactors, are you here to burn incense?" "Looking for someone." Tung was too lazy to talk to these nuns and said, "We are here to find the phoenix." "Benefactor, there is no phoenix in this small temple." The old nun said expressionlessly, "Bullshit." And Xiaojun squeezed past the old nun and stood in the courtyard and shouted, "Phoenix, Phoenix, come out." The old nun was thin and weak. She was hit by Xiaojun and almost fell to the ground. Ting quickly reached out to support the old nun and said, "Nun, we are all members of the Phoenix's family. We have very important things to discuss with her. There is indeed no phoenix in this temple." The old nun said seriously, "Anyone who enters my Buddhist sect has let go of the past. Now there is only a wholehearted heart to serve Buddha, and a body free from the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Big brother, don't talk nonsense with this old nun." And Xiaojun was obviously a little impatient to listen to the old nun talk about Buddhism and said, "Why don't we send someone to look around? How big can this broken temple be?" And Xiaojun waved his hand, and the 2 bodyguards behind them ran straight to the backyard. "No need to look." A clear voice came. "I'm here." Phoenix, who was dressed in a light gray robe, quickly walked over and stood in front of the 2 bodyguards in black. She said, "This is a holy land of Buddhism. You can't make a racket here." When the 2 bodyguards in black saw the young miss appear, they naturally did not dare to break into the temple hall and the backyard where the nuns lived. "This old thing still wants to lie." And Xiaojun grinned and said, "We already knew you were hiding here. Sister, come back with us." "Shut up," shouted the phoenix. "Sis, don't be angry." And Xing Yuan walked to the front of Phoenix, reached out to hold her arm and said, "Sister, little June has good intentions. Don't be angry with him. You've been away from home for months. Everyone's worried about you. It wasn't easy for us to find this place. We just want to bring you back. Sister, why don't you come back with us?" The phoenix shook her head and said, "This is my home. Where else should I go?" "Sister, you don't really want to be a nun, do you?" And Xing Yuan felt that this was a very difficult thing to understand. What reason did a family like theirs have to run to become a vegetarian nun? "If my heart is dead, going back will be painful. It's better to be a monk and end my life here," said the phoenix with a firm attitude. Tung stood in the distance and looked at his sister, and Xiao Xiao. He hadn't seen her for a while. Her appearance had become thinner, but her facial features were still as delicate as water. She wore a loose robe and gave off an ethereal feeling. However, her eye sockets were deep and dark. It seemed that the quality of her sleep these days was very poor. What was it that made her give up hope in life and still couldn't sleep in this pure Buddhist land? Because Tung's ability and wisdom were not enough to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the family, there were many things he didn't know. Although he had some guesses in his heart, compared to the actual situation, it was still worlds apart. If he knew the truth, why would he provoke and curse Feng Yan when he met him at the palace hotel? Tung looked at Xiao Xiao and said softly, "Sister, come back with me." "Brother." The phoenix glanced at Tung and said, "I've already made up my mind. Don't force me, okay? Take it as the last thing I ask of you. You should know that no one will accept your decision," Tung said in a deep voice. "The daughter of the Yin family has never become a nun. Do you know what other people think of us after this happened? Go back. If there's anything, explain it to your family. Grandpa, grandma, and the elders in the family all like you. How could they bear to let you suffer any grievances? They all like you. How could they bear to let you suffer any grievances? Hearing this, tears were about to flow out of the phoenix's eyes. Could it be that what she had endured was still not grievance? Because of the interests of the family, she couldn't be with the boy she liked. Because of their decision, she had to act with a man she didn't like. Or was it because they were powerless when the man they deeply loved was in danger? If these weren't grievances, then what were they? Was it harm? Was it murder? Yes, they had already killed their feelings, killed their hearts, killed their hopes for the future, killed the sunlight, the rain, the flowers, the birds, and the insects. Her world was a sheet of darkness. There are some things. Phoenix tried hard not to cry out loud. After this period of adjusting her state of mind and the power of the Buddhist scriptures, she was able to remain calm at this time. She raised her head, not letting the tears fall down from the corner of her eyes, and said, "I can't explain it clearly." Xiao. And Tung was a little angry and said, "What is it? Why can't you explain it clearly? We are all a family. If there's anything, we should bear it together. It's much better than you keeping it in your heart, right? I know, isn't it because of a man? I told you long ago that Fang Yan isn't a good person. I told you to keep your distance from him, but you didn't believe me. But it doesn't matter, you are still young. How did that sentence come about? Which woman hasn't fallen in love with a few idiots when they are young? Just treat him as an idiot who doesn't know how to cherish you." After a pause, Tung said, "The last time we met, I already taught him a lesson for you. If you still feel suffocated, wait until we return to Yanjing. Xiaojun and I will find him for a fight. I don't believe that a poor kid from a mountain village like him can challenge our own family." "You went to look for Fang Yan?" The phoenix was shocked. "Since I met him, I naturally had to teach him a lesson," Tung said confidently. Since he dared to do it, why would he be afraid of others talking about him? "You." Phoenix was so angry that she couldn't speak. She said, "What right do you have to find trouble with him?" Xiao. Tung's face was pitch black, and he said angrily, "How can you speak to your brother like that? Even now you are still speaking for him?" Phoenix sighed softly and said, "Forget it, you can go back." She looked at Xiaojun and Xingyuan and said, "I appreciate your kindness, but I really don't want to go back. That family can't accommodate me. Sister, just go back with us." And Xingyuan grabbed Phoenix's arm, wanting to forcefully drag her back. "Xingyuan." Phoenix calmly looked at Xingyuan and said, "Do you want me to die?" "Sister, I can't go back." Phoenix smiled miserably. "If I go back, I will die. I will really die." And Tung left with his cousins, full of anger and unwillingness. However, when they left, they still wrote a large check to Lotus Temple, hoping that the temple could improve their living conditions. In any case, they didn't want Phoenix to suffer too much here. What they didn't know was that Phoenix's grievance wasn't in the clothing, food, and shelter, but in her heart. After sending off Tung and the others, Phoenix closed the temple door and supported the old nun to walk to the temple hall. "Master Jinghui, they were too rude, are you okay?" Wholeheartedly devoted to Buddha, one's saliva will dry by oneself. How can I lower myself to the level of these secular people? The old nun smiled and waved her hand. "But do you really want to spend the rest of your life in this lotus temple?" Saying this is really disrespectful to Buddha, but this old nun still wants to say one more thing. "You are young, beautiful, and have a good family. You really don't need to walk on this road. Master Jinghui, my heart is already dead. What does other things have to do with me?" Phoenix shook her head and sighed. The old nun smiled, the wrinkles on her face stretched out like an orange peel, and said, "If my heart is really dead, how can I sigh? How can I be sad and cry when I see my loved ones?" "Master Jinghui." "Silly child." The old nun stroked Phoenix's head and said, "People often say that nothing is more sorrowful than a dead heart, but if the heart is really dead, how can there be sorrow? And how many people can really give up the prosperity of the world, their loved ones, and become a lonely chanting sutras? Since you can't let it go, then go out. Your brother is right, everything in the world, what can't be solved?" Phoenix shook her head and said, "Master Jinghui, You don't need to persuade me. I won't go back. These days in Lotus Temple are the most peaceful time in my heart. Don't lie. The old nun reached out and stroked Phoenix's eyes, and said, Since you came in, when have you ever had a good sleep? You have thoughts in your heart, and that's why you can't sleep at night. Your heart is not with Buddha, but with that man outside. Buddha has always been here, but that man outside may not always be waiting for you in the same place. Oh. Phoenix's expression was sad, and her heart was like thorns. Chapter 744. Her heart was originally as calm as still water, but the arrival of her family stirred up her mood again. Master Jinghui was right, because there was resentment and hatred. She couldn't sleep at night. If some problems weren't solved, she was afraid that those messy emotions would torment her until she went crazy. However, how could such a thing be solved? That wounded heart, that gloomy world, could it be restored to its original state? Full of grievances and strong melancholy, she returned to her room, only to find that there was another man in her room. Lotus Temple didn't have many incense offerings, so there were very few nuns here. Including Phoenix, there were only 7 people in total, each of whom could have a separate room. If you wanted, you could have 2 or even 3 rooms. The man's back was facing Phoenix. Kneeling on the futon, she chanted and prayed to every day, kneeling in front of the statue of Guanyin in the room. His body was straight, making his back particularly slender and strong. His waist was like a bee's, his long hair draped over his shoulders. Even if one couldn't see his face, one could feel that he was a handsome and affectionate man. His mouth was murmuring, his voice was hurried but indistinct. It was difficult to tell what he was saying. He was so focused that he didn't seem to notice that there was a woman watching behind him. Phoenix looked at the man's back, her body stiff and her face ashen. She wanted to retreat, but in the end she stood there without moving. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? The man said aloud. His voice was gentle, with a husky magnetism. He was just praying to Guanyin Bodhisattva, but in the blink of an eye he asked such a cold and ruthless question. He was like a gentleman robber, but also like an elegant pervert. No. The moment she heard the man's voice, Phoenix suddenly became quiet. She looked at the man and said aloud, If you kill me, all the karma will disappear at once. The body will be freed, and the mind will reach the other side. Although this solution is not perfect, perhaps, at that time, I can really have a good sleep. Reach the other side? The man's voice was calm, but Phoenix could still hear a trace of mockery. There's no such thing as a pure land of heaven in this world. Does that world have it? If all the eminent monks were as pure as they claimed, why would they need to enjoy the incense of their believers and build their golden bodies? That world is even dirtier than the human world, right? You have hatred for this world, the Phoenix said. What about you? The man got up and turned around to look at Phoenix, who was wearing the monk's robe. How are you doing? No. Phoenix shook her head. I hate myself. I can understand how you feel at this moment. The man grinned, but when he smiled, he did not make any sound. It was faint and fleeting. You have 2 regrets and 2 regrets. You hate your family. You hate them for ruining your life. You hate yourself for not having the courage to change your fate. You felt guilty towards Fang Yan. You loved him deeply, ever since you were young. But in the end you hurt him. You also feel guilty towards me. You don't like me, but you always use me. I couldn't bear to kill you, but they used it to kill me. Phoenix's face paled. This man really did understand her. It was much deeper than she had thought. One of her hands was still holding on to the door frame, and the hand holding the door frame cracked against the fragile door. I've let Fang Yan down and I've let you down, Phoenix said. I don't know if I've let you down more or Fang Yan down more. The more I don't understand this problem, the more I hate my family, the more I hate myself. Ever since that happened, I haven't been able to sleep well. Remorse seeps into my bones, and a poisonous snake bites at my heart. The man sighed softly. Do you know why I was kneeling in front of Guanyin Bodhisattva? Phoenix shook her head. I don't know. I heard you say a long time ago that you don't worship Buddha, and you don't believe in ghosts. Yes. I don't worship Buddha, and I don't believe in ghosts. But maybe they really exist in this world? The man said softly. He looked into Phoenix's eyes with pity. I can understand that the Yin family wants to take you back. Your uncles are people who care a lot about faith. How could they allow their women to become nuns? I heard the conversation between you and them. I also heard the conversation between you and that old nun. I know you haven't had a good sleep for a long time. You look very tired. I knelt in front of Buddha and recited the medicine Buddha's enlightenment mantra for you. I hope Bodhisattva can bless you with no illness or disaster, and let you have a sweet dream. Phoenix's eyes were moist. Why bother? The man grinned. If I was in a novel or a movie, I would be the #1 bad guy in the world. But bad guys also have feelings. Bad guys can also fall in love with a woman. From the first time they see her, day after day, year after year. Even if they know she likes another man, even if they know she's just playing, they're still willing to endure it. Why did you come out? Phoenix said in a choked voice. Everyone thought you were dead. I also thought you were dead. I also thought I was dead. The man squinted his eyes and laughed. But I came back to life. When I opened my eyes, even I was shocked. Bai Xiu, go away. Go far away and don't come back. Phoenix pulled the man's arm, wanting to drive him out, to a place where no one could find him. I will go. Bai Xiu looked at Phoenix and said, I'm here to take you away. Phoenix shook her head and said, I won't go. I won't go anywhere. I live here. There are mountains, water, and Buddhist scriptures. Your attitude towards life is too negative. The man said, you should have a more colorful life. I can give you such a life. Fang Yin doesn't have such courage. Bai Xiu. The man stretched his body and chopped Phoenix's neck with his hand. Phoenix's body was already weak. She fainted immediately after receiving this blow. The man picked up Phoenix's body that was about to fall. He looked at her delicate and flawless face and said, you see, you are also very beautiful like this. With that, he pushed the door with Phoenix in his arms and wanted to leave. Put her down. A clear man's voice came. The voice was very abrupt, but it was so clear, as if someone was shouting in his ear. The man's footsteps paused as he looked at the tall man standing at the corner of the lotus pond in front of the courtyard. The man sat on a big rock with a small flower in his mouth. His posture was lazy, as if he had just woken up. Bai Lilu, the man said in a deep voice. His voice was still calm. The miraculous appearance of Bai Lilu did not make him feel that it was ridiculous. He was a person who had died once. What else could make him feel strange? Put it down. Buddha said to put it down. Bai Lilu was still sitting on the big rock. He plucked the small flower from his mouth and played with it in his hand. You want to stop me? Bai Xiu stared coldly at Bai Lilu and asked. Bai Xiu, you're actually not dead yet. Bai Lilu clicked his tongue. He looked very regretful that Bai Xiu was still alive. You said you died well. Why did you come back to life? Don't you know that what you're doing is very immoral? Life and death is a very serious matter. You're alive one moment and you're dead the next. Isn't this cheating people's feelings? After knowing that you died, the people of Swallow Dock were happy for who knows how long. Now that you're alive again, aren't we happy for nothing? Swallow Dock. Bai Xiu smiled coldly and said, one day, I'll make those arrogant people pay the price. That's a bit too much. Who scolds themselves like that? Bai Lilu chuckled and said, everyone in Swallow Dock knows that before you revealed your true nature, you were the most arrogant person in Swallow Dock. Of course, we've never treated you as a member of Swallow Dock. You're just a little bastard who mingles in Swallow Dock. Bai Xiu's eyes flashed with killing intent. He stared at Bai Lilu and asked, did Fang Yin send you? What do you think? Bai Lilu said unhappily. I'm not interested in the little girl in your arms. I just happened to go back to do something and drank a few bowls of his wine. Then he threw me into this broken temple deep in the mountains to wait for a rabbit to come to me. I know you're very unhappy to see me, but can you understand how I feel? Bai Xiu was greatly shocked, but his face didn't show it. He asked, Fang Yin knows I'm still alive? How could he know you're still alive? He told me with certainty that he stabbed you to death with a sword. For this, he even ran to father's grave with a large barrel of wine and got drunk. Then, you think it's strange? I think it's strange too. He clearly killed you, so why did he ask me to come and protect this little girl? Bai Lilu shook his thick head and said, although I don't want to admit it, Fang Yan is indeed the smartest guy in our group. Many times, I don't know what he's thinking. He asked me to come, so I came. Bai Lilu looked at the phoenix in Bai Xiu's arms and said, put her down. You can leave or stay. It doesn't matter to me. You're courting death. Bai Xiu snorted coldly, his words filled with killing intent. Chapter 745. I really am courting death. Bai Lilu laughed heartily and said, I deliberately found this place to send you to your death. I can definitely help make up for what Fang Yan didn't do well. He missed, but I won't. He's too kind and only stabbed you once. If I have the chance, I'll smash your head. I don't believe you'll have a chance to come back to life that way. You're the same as Fang Yan. You like to play these boring word games. Bai Xiu disdained Bai Lilu's threat and strode towards the back of the mountain with the phoenix in his arms. Clearly, he had just broken into the Lotus Temple from the back of the mountain. Bai Lilu still maintained a smiling expression on his face, looking like he didn't care at all. He bent the middle finger of his right hand and flicked the nameless flower in his hand in Bai Xiu's direction. Whoosh! The small flower whistled through the air, creating a fierce gust of wind. Bai Xiu tilted his head and dodged the small flower's attack. The small flower smashed into the wooden door of the room, creating a small hole in the door from the seemingly weak flower. The flower was embedded in the small hole, like a withered door regaining its vitality and blooming a fresh flower. When Bai Xiu tilted his head to dodge the flower, Bai Lilu had already jumped down from the boulder and suddenly lifted the millstone-sized boulder he was sitting on. He didn't directly use the boulder as a killing weapon. Instead, he raised the long boulder with both hands and slammed it towards Bai Xiu. He used the boulder as a handy weapon. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Bai Lilu charged forward with the boulder. His body was submerged in the boulder, and from Bai Xiu's point of view, Bai Lilu seemed to have become one with the boulder. The boulder moved against the wind, intending to smash Bai Xiu and the phoenix in his arms with a devastating force. Bai Xiu's forward step stopped. Just as the boulder was about to land on his head, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and floated backwards along with the strong wind carried by the boulder. This move was similar to Fang Yan's drunken crane riding the wind. Bai Xiu's body floated in the air like a crane, and Bai Lilu's slap missed. Kacha! The 1,000-pound boulder slammed onto the floor, creating a large pit on the moss-covered green brick floor. The 1,000-pound boulder in Bai Lilu's hand also broke into two pieces. Bai Lilu's momentum did not diminish. As his body leaped high like a rock spreading its wings, he fiercely smashed the remaining half of the boulder in his hand toward Bai Xiu in the air. Hoo hoo hoo, the boulder was as fast as lightning, hurtling towards Bai Xiu in front of him. Bai Xiu sensed the danger. As he retreated, he kicked at the incoming boulder with all his might. Crack! The boulder changed direction and smashed towards Bai Xiu, who was hot on his heels. Go to hell! Bai Lilu threw a punch. Hua la la, Bai Lilu punched a hole through the big rock, and gravel flew everywhere. Kacha kacha! The stones floated in the air for a while before falling to the ground. It collided with the brick wall and the blue stone tiles on the ground a second time, producing a crisp sound of bones shattering. Due to the obstruction of these gravel attacks, the distance between Bai Xiu and Bai Lilu gradually increased. Bai Xiu gently landed with the unconscious phoenix in his arms. His feet stood in front of the small door of the bedroom where Phoenix lived. Clang! Bai Lilu's huge body also landed, directly causing the blue stone tiles under his feet to protrude. When he left, a pair of clear footprints would be left on the ground. It was a long story, but all of this happened in a flash. From the time Bai Lilu threw the small flower attack to the time the two landed, only a few seconds had passed. Bai Lilu grinned. The fight just now was very satisfying. It's been a long time since I've had such a good fight. Bai Lilu laughed and said, it's still satisfying to fight with you. I don't care if I kill or cripple you. I can play however I want. Fang Yan can't do it. When he fights, he's like a sissy. If he's not hiding closely, Then he'll circle far away. Before I can even throw a punch, he'll already disappear. The more I fight, the more frustrated I feel. Bai Xiu really wanted to tell Bailey Lu that he had misunderstood Fang Yan. Fang Yan was not the kind of person he thought he was. Bai Xiu was a madman, but he was crazier than you. When he was determined to kill someone, he could even throw away his own life. Bai Xiu still felt a lingering fear when he thought of the battle on the top of One Sword Peak. That was a sure kill situation. What was a sure kill situation? It meant that they had to kill Fang Yan tonight. If they didn't kill him, they would be struck by lightning and cursed by the gods. In the end, they were killed. No matter how great the screenwriter was, it would be embarrassing to write such a shameless plot. Even villains have their own dignity, okay? Villains also had to maintain their dignity, okay? Now that he heard Bailey Lu say that Fang Yan was a sissy when he fought, Bai Xiu really wanted to reply with one word. Are you blind? Bailey Lu looked at Phoenix in Bai Xiu's arms and said, put the woman down. Let's have a good time first. You've been knocked down by me. You can't leave, and you can't take the girl away. You've knocked me down so you can do whatever you want. Anyway, I can't stop you. Isn't this very straightforward? That's how it should be, Bai Xiu said. He looked at Bailey Lu with admiration and said, among the younger generation of Swallowfort, you're the only guy that I don't hate. Is this a confession? Bailey Lu grinned and said, but the person I like the most is Fang Yan. He's such a cheap person. When you're with him, you either want to scold him or beat him up. It's easy to become good friends while fighting and scolding. That's a pity. Bai Xiu shook his head and said. Bai Xiu spread Phoenix's body on the floor in front of Guanyin Bodhisattva, and let her head rest on a cushion, so that she could sleep better. He did this very carefully and his eyes were affectionate. He looked like a newlywed husband taking care of his drunk wife. Bailey Lu sighed softly at this scene. No matter what this person's character was, at least he liked Phoenix. He thought of Fang Yan again. What about Fang Yan? Did Fang Yan like Phoenix? The person he liked was Yi Rou, and they were now boyfriend and girlfriend, and the Yi family wanted him to marry Yi Rou and become their son-in-law. It's a mess. Bailey Lu shook his head desperately. He liked to fight to his heart's content, and didn't like to think about these headache-splitting complicated things. After Bai Xiu settled Phoenix down, he walked back to the entrance of the small courtyard and stood still. Fight to my heart's content. Fight to my heart's content. Although your 100 miles godly fist has improved a lot, you should know that you're no match for me. I don't know, Bailey Lu said. When it comes to fighting to the death, I won't admit defeat no matter who comes. Bai Xiu nodded and didn't say anything else. He was ready to fight. Stop! An old voice rang out. At the same time, a group of nuns trotted toward the backyard. The noise in the backyard was so loud, with loud shouts and breaking stones, that the nuns chanting in front were all alarmed. Seeing two strange men appear in the backyard, the abbot of the temple immediately shouted, Pure land of Buddhism, don't be rude. Old Nun Jinghui stared at Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu angrily. These two people actually dared to come here to fight. Did they have any respect for Buddha? Abbot, they must be here for Phoenix. Where's Phoenix? Go see how Phoenix is doing now. Because Abbot Jinghui felt that Phoenix's 6 roots were not yet fulfilled, she refused to shave her head. Although Phoenix had been accompanying them to eat vegetarian food and serve Buddha, she was only a layman and couldn't be called a true Buddhist disciple. The nuns in Lotus Temple all liked the intelligent and beautiful Phoenix, so they had always called her by her original name. 2 middle-aged nuns shouted Phoenix as they ran toward the hut where Phoenix lived. Phoenix, Phoenix. Bai Xiu stepped forward and blocked in front of them. They moved a few steps, wanting to bypass Bai Xiu and rush into the hut. Just as they were about to do so, Bai Xiu appeared in front of them once again. Get out of the way. A middle-aged nun with hemorrhoids at the corner of her lips shouted angrily. You should know that there are no gods or Buddhas in this world. Bai Xiu looked into the nun's eyes and said, So if I attack you, no one can protect you. I've said it very clearly. Bai Xiu said expressionlessly. With a flick of his sleeve, the 2 middle-aged nuns' bodies flew into the air and fell backward as if they had suffered a heavy blow. Bailey Lu took a step forward and picked up the two middle-aged nuns' bodies and put them on the ground. He stared coldly at Bai Xiu and said with a face full of mockery, "How mighty, not even letting two monks go." "Monks are also human," Bai Xiu said. "Anyone who makes a mistake should pay the price." This sentence sounds familiar. "It's Fang Yan who said it," Bai Xiu said. "When Fang Yan wanted to kill me, he said this. I think what he said is very reasonable." Clang, 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 Bailey Lu walked toward Bai Xiu step by step. With every step he took, his foot that landed on the ground would leave a hole in the blue stone bricks. "Anyone who makes a mistake should pay the price," Bailey Lu said in a hoarse voice. "Now it's your turn to pay the price for your mistake." Bai Xiu looked at Bailey Lu's feet and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Bailey Lu, who he did not take seriously before, seemed to have grown up at an astonishing speed. "Hundredly godly fists, destruction of heaven and earth," Bai Xiu said softly. "I want to see how you are going to destroy this heaven and earth." Chapter 746. Bai Xiu's complexion was like jade, and he was incomparably handsome. But there was a hint of violence in his eyes. He didn't look like someone easy to deal with. Bai Lu was majestic, cool and unrestrained. His every movement was natural and without any scheming, and his eyes were clear, even a little childlike. He gave people the feeling of a child who couldn't grow up. They faced each other. The battle was about to begin. Bai Lu looked at Bai Xiu with a smile and said, "Teacher once said that Bai Xiu is good with the sword, better than me. I've wanted to experience your thunder sword for a long time. I didn't think I'd get the chance until today." "Congratulations," Bai Xiu said calmly. Ever since he was killed by Fang Yan once, he didn't feel any joy or sorrow. His heart was as still as water. He was alive, but his heart was dead. Now he suddenly realized, what else was there in the world that was worth his longing for? "Congratulations for finally having the chance to fight with you. Congratulations for finding me now. If you challenged me a long time ago, you would have died a long time ago. You think you can make me angry like this?" Bai Lu laughed and said, "To be honest, when it comes to verbal attacks, you're not even as good as Fang Yan. Even he can't make me angry. How can you mess up my state of mind?" "I didn't want to make you angry, nor did I want to mess up your state of mind. I'm just stating a fact. You've been killed by Fang Yan once. I didn't think you're still so arrogant. Do you really think there's no other talent in Swallow Dock besides you?" "Of course there is," Bai Xiu said. "Fang Yan has the heart of Tai Chi, a rare genius in Taoism. He can be counted as one. Yi Wenro entered Taoism from martial arts. She almost reached the heavenly Tao realm. She can also be counted as one. The others are just SOSO. I've never taken you seriously." Bai Lu laughed out loud and said, "Bai Xiu, you've improved. I thought you thought I was number one in the world, and the others were no match for you." After being stabbed by Fang Yan, he finally understood that there was always someone better than him. "You said that Fang Yan and Yi Ro were talents of Swallow Dock, and I admit that. Also, they have fought with you before, using their true strength to conquer you." Bai Lu stomped his feet and charged towards Bai Xiu, shouting, "Now let me do this." Bailey Lu's body was like an angry rhinoceros. His feet were like the iron hooves of a rhinoceros. Every step he took made a big hole in the bluestone floor. There was no gravel in the hole, only powder. White mist lingered in the depths of the footprints, carrying the smell of scorched earth. Bailey Lu's body was very heavy, but his punches were very light. Of course, the fist was extremely fast, reaching Bai Xiu's chest in the blink of an eye. There was no gust of wind or thunder. It looked like a casual punch, but it was also a punch that shook Bai Xiu to his core. "This is," Bai Xiu thought in his heart. He had never fought with anyone from the Bailey family, but since they were both from Swallow Dock, how could he not have any understanding of the Bailey family's godly fist? The Bailey godly fist was known for its strength. Once the godly fist appeared, life and death would be seen. It would not stop until blood was shed. Their method of punching was best exemplified by the genius of the Bailey clan, Bailey Feng. Because Bailey Feng's punches were fierce and domineering, he never held back in battle. Therefore the outside world called him Bailey Feng. He was once the most promising talent of the Bailey family to conquer Heaven's Way. Unfortunately, for some reason, Bailey Feng failed to conquer Heaven's Way and eventually committed suicide. This was a great blow to the Bailey family, but it also greatly stimulated the Bailey family's drive to strive for martial arts. Bai Xiu had already thought of a plan to use softness to overcome hardness. He was prepared to use his excellent body movement and the unpredictable thunder sword to defeat the strong enemy. However, what did Bailey Lu mean by playing this trick all of a sudden? Was this the lover's will fist? Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind. His right hand was already raised like a sword, and the sword slashed towards the incoming fist. Although it was a mortal palm, when he waved the sword, there was a piercingly cold sword intent flowing. Bai Xiu slashed 49 times in a row, and every slash was aimed at Bailey Lu's fist. He wanted to chop Bailey Lu's fist into a ball of meat paste. The sword shadows were dense, and the sword chi crisscrossed. Banging sounds rang out incessantly. Bai Xiu's sword slashed on Bailey Lu's arm, like using countless iron swords to stab a ball of cotton. No matter how Bai Xiu slashed, Bailey Lu was indifferent. He only focused on doing one simple thing, waving his fist and smashing it towards Bai Xiu's chest. Bai Xiu changed his move again. His palm flashed with green light, and when he waved, there was the sound of thunder. Then, using his palm as a sword, he stabbed straight at the center of Bailey Lu's fist. The thunder sword pierces the heart. Bang! The fist and palm collided. There was a dull sound like metal and stone colliding. Kacha. Bailey Lu took 2 steps back, and with each step, the green stone tiles on the ground were crushed into pieces. Bai Xiu was in an even worse state. His body flew out and crashed uncontrollably into the stone wall of the house. Clang! There was a dull sound from the stone wall. His body suffered such a heavy blow, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Silence. The entire place was dead silent. The nuns watched as the 2 men flew up, watched as they fought with their lives, watched as they crushed the hard green bricks on the ground, watched as their bodies flew into the air. Do gods really exist in this world? They couldn't help but think. Remembering that this was a great disrespect to Buddha, they hurriedly threw such absurd and rude thoughts out of their minds. Bai Xiu leaned against the stone wall, his sharp eyes staring at Bailey Lu, who was sneering on the opposite side. I've said it before, now it's my turn to prove it, Bailey Lu said with a smile. How does it feel? This is not the Bailey family's fist style, Bai Xiu said in a low voice. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and used it to wipe the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth. This is the Bailey family's fist style, Bailey Lu said with a proud face. Starting from me, it will become the Bailey family's fist style. What do you mean? Because I'm the one who comprehended this fist style. Everyone knows that the Bailey family's godly fist style is the strongest, and the Bailey family members have consciously developed in that direction. Bailey Feng, the heavenly son of heaven, displayed the strongest side of the Bailey family's godly fist style to the extreme, and almost conquered the heavenly Tao. Bailey Lu's expression was regretful, and he said in a low voice, but it's still not enough. No matter what, it's still not enough. Not only did he not conquer the heavenly Tao, but he also suffered from the backlash of the heavenly Tao, and finally committed suicide. This is the Bailey family's biggest loss. It was also from then on that the Bailey family realized a problem. Is the Bailey family's godly fist style on the wrong path? Or, is it because we haven't fully comprehended the profound meaning of the godly fist style? We worked hard from generation to generation, and improved from generation to generation. We wanted to maintain the powerful lethality of the godly fist style, but at the same time, we wanted it to be gentler and more moderate. After I became an adult at the age of 18, I rarely stayed in Swallow Dock. Every year, I would go out to visit various fist masters and challenge the world's heroes. Hard work pays off. I collected the essence of fist styles in the world and integrated them into our family's 100ly godly fist. Now you see, this is the result of my hard work. I call it reverse fist. Reverse fist? Go against the heavenly Tao to achieve the great Tao? Bai Xiu folded the handkerchief neatly and put it back into his pocket. He walked towards Bailey Lu step by step and said, "This time, I really have to congratulate you. You comprehended a new fist style and can be called a fist master." I admit, you are also a talent of Swallow Dock. You are qualified to be my opponent. I am qualified to be your opponent, Bailey Lu said with a face full of sarcasm. I don't think so. I don't think of you as my opponent. I want to be the killer who kills you. Fang Yan is a good friend of mine, and you killed his father. I have no responsibility to avenge his father. But if I can make you stay here, he won't be able to raise his head in front of me for the rest of his life, right? This favor is not so easily repaid. Thinking about it, I'm a little excited. This kind of thing is based on the fact that you can make me stay here. The corner of Bai Xiu's mouth raised slightly. Even when he despised a person, he would not be so obvious. I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. Then eat my fist again. As Bailey Lu spoke, he once again clenched his fist and rushed towards Bai Xiu. Clang, clang, clang. The bluestone floor was once again crushed by him. The old nuns' faces were full of heartache. They had trampled the floor to such a state, and when the time came, they still had to find someone to repair it. Who could they find to repair it? Bai Xiu also moved. He no longer sat and waited for death like before, but took the initiative to meet Bailey Lu. After running quickly for a few steps, he successfully borrowed the momentum, and his body leaped high. Whoosh! His body spun in midair, and his right palm once again blazed with green light. Bai Xiu's body spun faster and faster, so fast that his shadow could not be seen clearly, and only the burning green flame could be seen clearly. Bai Xiu. Bailey Lu suddenly pushed out his fist and roared, "Go to hell!" Bai Xiu's body descended from the sky, and then he waved his palm, and a green beam of light struck towards the top of Bailey Lu's head. Thunder Sword covers the moon. Covering the sky and covering the moon. He wanted to split Bailey Lu in half with one strike. He had once used this move against Fang Yan, and although he failed in the end, this move had really caused great trouble for Fang Yan. I can't cut Fang Yan, but can't I cut Bailey Lu? Bai Xiu thought in his heart. As the two of them fought fiercely, a young man in a white robe appeared beside the nuns with a smile on his face, and said, "Abbess, how about we make a bet? Who do you think will win?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.